This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport. This stream is powered by Melita, using Melita Gigapower Internet. World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
For only €5 a month, experience every high-definition moment on your TV, tablet, phone or PC. Great teams, great moments, and so much more. TSN from Melita is your ticket to stay in the game. Visit melita.com/sports.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult. dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
Wish your Wi-Fi network would just work in any room? Our new Stellar Wi-Fi is AI assisted to give you the smoothest, fastest possible Wi-Fi throughout your home. Stellar Wi-Fi, assisted by AI, exclusive to Melita. Find out more in-store or online.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
Hello everybody and welcome to the final round of the HyperX Endurance Series on GT Sport, and where we go into it with 2 or 3 drivers yet to decide this championship. My name is Kieran McGinley, and joining me alongside, of course, as we all know, is Nicholas Miliband. How are you doing over there?
Hi, Kieran. Doing quite good. Overall, very excited for this final round. Of course, it's going to be a rain race, so there's plenty to look forward to.
Yes, and we should probably mention that it is, of course, at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, the legendary Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Belgium. And as you said, it is going to be pouring down with rain, so it should spice up the action. It makes those little mistakes that you might make during a 90-minute endurance race become a lot more apparent. And Nicholas, obviously, you've been on the podium more times than I'll ever be in my life. What are the secrets that you're going to be offering the drivers out here today?
Well, just a little bit less is a bit more than a bit too much today. Just try to stay calm, try to stay clean. Don't push your luck too much when you're pushing for the limits, because the rain will penalize that more than reward it. And I think the guys know that already quite well. They have a lot more experience in Gran Turismo sport than most people watching here, I would say. And I'm pretty certain that they will all be able to deal with it quite nicely.
Yeah, and we've got 2 or 3 title rivals coming into this race. And obviously, Nicholas, you've been watching them throughout the entire series. Who do you think has the upper hand going into this one?
Well, for sure, the upper hand right now is going to Kyokudo Sentai. Of course, he has won every single race so far. He has, been in control the entire time. And now that Windy Boy sadly can't make the last round because of quarantine, it's all up to Mikael Sieka. So that's going to be very interesting today. So if Mikael can maybe get this last bit of performance out that he has shown his traces of so often already, and maybe finally beat Kyokudo, or if Kyokudo will remain victorious again.
Yes, and of course, it all comes down to that, really. If you've had a dominant run all the way through, it's going to be difficult to be taken off of your perch, if you like. And as we say that, we are now back on track, or at least for the practice session here. Now, the drivers have a little bit of short practice here before their qualifying session. 20 minutes of qualifying will be coming up shortly for them. But we're watching Mikael, who is, of course, one of the championship contenders here, Nicholas. And how would you rate his season so far going into this last round?
Overall, he's been very, very strong this season. I think what really dealt a huge blow to his championship chances was Monza, simply because he just chose the wrong car there. Because, of course, for Monza, you want a car that's fast on the straights. So, you know, everyone was there in cars that are incredibly fast down the straights. We had a Corvette, we had people in the Aston Martin V12, and we had people in the Mustang even. And one of those people was Mikael, but the cornering performance is still very important at Monza, and the Mustang proved that it was not quite up to spec, so Mikael fell quite far behind, and that was the big issue that he had in that race. So overall, I think he just needs to pick up the pieces and put them all together to bring that challenge to Kyokudo.
Yeah, absolutely. And meanwhile, Kyokudo does have a 20-point lead at the top. He's at the top of the table on 105 points. Behind him is Mikael there on 85. And of course, we would have had Windy Boy in JB here on 80 points, but obviously through quarantine reasons, he cannot be with us here tonight. So we're down to 2 drivers here to decide this championship. But as we've already discussed here, Kyokudo looks like he's got the upper hand, 20-point gap lead as well. As we're seeing him, he's just waiting in the pit lane at the moment, not interested in going out there out on track at this moment in time. Maybe he's just picking his moment to grace us with his presence out on track. But surely if he keeps it on the track here, Nicholas, this championship is his.
Well, definitely. With a 20-point advantage, it's definitely very comfy. So you can always rely on this buffer that you have there. But as we know, first place gets 35 points, so overall what Mikael has to do is beat him by, well, just over 15 points. So I think overall it's not too far-fetched. You know, if Kyokudo, for example, makes a mistake here in the rain, that happens very quickly, and if you make a mistake here in the rain at Spa, it's never really a small off, it's always a big off. So I think what Mikael really has to just do here is stay clean, try to apply some gentle pressure on Kyokudo, maybe just enough that Kyokudo slips up and makes a mistake. Because once you make that mistake, to try and regain your composure here in the rain, it's really difficult.
Yeah, and the drivers are going to be having to do that for 90 minutes. Now, of course, we do have tyre wear and fuel consumption as well at a higher rate. As far as I remember, it's tyre wear times 5 and fuel times 7. So we're expecting around 4 stops in this 90-minute endurance race. So getting all the stops right, keeping your tyres in check and making sure you have enough fuel on the car are all going to be really important factors going into this one. And I know for sure Kyokudo, of all the races he wants to not make a mistake at, this has to be the one.
Yeah, most definitely it is, and I think we're going to really see some more of his interesting strategy plays that we've seen so far from his season before. Simply because this, you said it's looking to be a 4-stop race, but Kyokudo, he really dictated the strategy in most races, I think, and he really just knew when to pit. Because at Monza, we had an actual race where it was dictated by the maximum fuel that you could burn off. But at Nürburgring and at Sao Paulo, people pitted way earlier than when their fuel was completed, simply because the tires were already so worn out that it was simply faster to just pit quickly and ill-windy there with a little bit of a moment for a poo on. But yeah, I think today might be another one of these races, especially just looking as... you know, in these rain conditions, you get a slide going quite quickly, and with this accelerated tire wear, that is going to be catastrophic for your race.
Yeah, I was going to say, Windy there, having that moment through Puon, but then managing to recover and save it. Not often do you get to say, I saved a tail snap through Puon. You don't get to say that very often at all. Normally, if you lose the back end at Puon, that is it. You're heading straight for the wall. But yeah, nice driving from Windy there, able to gather himself. And if there's going to be a time you make your mistakes, it's going to be in this practice session. This is really where you're going to be pushing the limits of the car and of the track in these conditions, just as a final reminder of what is the limit, so you don't exceed it during quali in the race.
Yeah, pretty much. But of course, right now you have to just gain your own single composure. So basically, how you're going to do lines, how you're going to do braking points when you're alone on track. I think the most interesting part for this will be how they will all adapt to this situation when they're all in a pack together. Simply because it's just a completely different just impression, a different feeling and a different experience how you drive in the rain in a big pack, because you have spray, you have people in your line, you have people on the braking points that you normally take, so you have to just adjust that little bit more than just in normal pack racing.
Absolutely, and what better way to round off a series than it here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Fantastic circuit, and it just does provide some great racing over the years. There's some legendary corners as well. I'm talking about Eau Rouge and Radion. Going over the blind left-hander at the top of Radion is not for the faint-hearted for sure. So we should see some great action and some great racing here today, as Kyokudo is at the top of the standings right now, and he is at the top of the standings by 0.6 of a second, 2:43.3 in these heavy rain conditions. So obviously we're expecting in qualifying for those times to be slightly lower. What I'm thinking is the drivers will use this time to just make sure and finalize their race strategy before they go full pelt into their quali setup in the next session. And they have 20 minutes in qualifying, so they've got plenty of time to set that perfect lap time. As we've already seen, though, it is a bit treacherous out there in these conditions, so it's very easy to get it wrong if you're not concentrating.
Exactly. It's just as you say, it's very easy to get it wrong. And of course, in itself, 20 minutes is a very long time, so you have quite a few attempts to get it right. But when you consider that right now we have around 2:40 of a lap time, you just really have a couple of runs that you can get in, and of course when you don't really get your first run as good as you wanted and you see, well, in practice I was a couple of tenths faster, then of course you're instantly going to start building up some pressure. The setups are locked, of course, so everyone's here at the same level with these cars, and I think also we have exclusively Audis here today, which is a very strong car, of course, at Spa, as we know from past casual races. But yeah, like in the rain, we've never seen it before. So I really wonder how people will do with the pressure of rain qualifying.
Yeah, and of course there is the element of balance of performance as well, just to make sure the cars are as equal as possible. But as you already said, all the cars are the same make and are the same car anyway, so that's not going to be a huge issue when we go in towards the race. And there is Daman making his way out down towards that double left-hander of Puon now, flying all the way through, and you can see there the spray just being kicked up by the cars, even in this heavy rain condition, just making his way, tiptoeing almost, going through Puon as he now makes his way on towards the next couple of corners. This chicane here, which in the dry is fantastic. You just chuck the car in, hope it sticks, use the curbs to your advantage. But of course in these slippery conditions, you can already see the back end wanting to squirm out there, and he's not happy in these treacherous conditions. The drivers want to put their foot down, but they know they just can't quite do that.
Of course you have traction control here, but like most of the time it just interacts in a way that is not so beneficial to you. So even in the rain, you're just constantly trying to stay out of the traction control. And as you say, you can't just put the throttle down because it's just not quite the fastest way to do it. And especially if the traction control then finally decides, okay, mate, I'm going to give you a bit more power. And, you can see what happens with that. Then usually the car's already around by that point.
Oh, absolutely. And nothing more embarrassing than finding yourself spun around at that. We've just got about a minute to qualifying now, and we're seeing those 2:43 lap times. Nicholas, do you expect the times to fall down as we head into qualifying?
It's going to be a good question, I think. I think Kyokudo might be able to bring it down to a 42. Maybe if he gets a very good run with an empty car, maybe even a 41. but I don't think we're gonna be that much lower, because overall they're all starting with full fuel in the qualifying, and of course you can only burn so much fuel and return to pits to get a new set of tires. So we'll see, but overall I think 2:43 is already a quite good banker.
Yeah, and we're about to have 20 minutes of qualifying so that the drivers can find out where they're going to start this race as we join the action back once again. As you can see, qualifying is underway, so the 20 minutes have started, and one of the first drivers out on track, no surprise whatsoever, is Kyokodo, who is out there wanting to be the first person to set a lap time. And it's going to be a little bit of a crowded first part of this session as drivers try and find that space out there on this circuit. I mean, they've got 7 kilometers to pick from to try and find their space out there, but even so, if you're on a fast run, you don't want to be coming across anybody on your flying lap. So we'll have to wait and see how they get on in this in these conditions. You can sort of expect the outlap to be around about 3.5 minutes, which, as you rightly said, Nicholas, when you add up the outlap, the fast lap, and then the in lap, you're looking at around about 10 minutes to do that. So really, the drivers, if they're looking to just do that one fast run, they've really only got 2 attempts. It really does favour just staying out there and putting in lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, definitely. But then the big issue of tyre wear comes in, because these rain tires, of course, we just saw them into Brussels, how much Kyokodo and Mikael are already pushing just to get that little gap to the cars behind, because of course you want to be by yourself. But for Sector 1 and Sector 3, it doesn't matter if it's wet or dry, you will always want to get a bit of that toe, because you can gain so much time from that. If you make a tiny mistake in Sector 2 and you are still able to recover from it, but then you have a car in front of you, you can still gain quite a bit of time just through slipstream.
Absolutely, as Kyokodo now makes his way on towards the final couple of corners, the back end squirming there as he makes his way through, just trying to find some sort of grip out there as we head now on towards the 2 left-handers, the second one of course being the legendary Blanchimont corner. Just flat out through there if you can, if you dare, in these cars, in these conditions. We'll be able to see if Kyokodo goes full throttle through there. I don't think he lifted at all, because the back end was out as he entered the corner as we head on towards the bus stop chicane. So Kyokodo here backs off in towards that bus stop chicane to just try and collect his thoughts and then go for one run as he makes his way now out of that bus stop chicane. Really tricky corner because you're going uphill as we make our way now towards the start finish line, riding on board now with the championship leader going into this race, heading in towards La Source, hairpin braking heavily now into first gear, and you can see under 60 kilometers an hour just to get that car through as you now go through the gears, going down the hill then as we make our way towards these legendary bits of corner. You can see them in the distance, ominous as they are, going in towards Eau Rouge and then Radion. You can see how much curb Kyokodo takes on the entry in towards Eau Rouge and then on the exit of Radion here as we now make our way down the Kemmel Straight. You've got plenty of time to think about your braking zone going in towards Les Combes. So it's just trying to pick out that vital braking spot in the pouring rain. You'll see the brake markers coming up on the left-hand side, braking about 125 meters before the corner, trying to steer this car in through Les Combes. We go, and just patient on the throttle. That's going to be the key as we now make our way through that third part of Les Combes. Now going down the hill then, we're getting onto the curb on the outside, trying to make the circuit as wide as possible on exit. Now heading in towards Brussels, which is always a tricky corner. It's almost like you have to trail brake on entry if you can. It's really tricky corner, very easy to lock a brake if you're not careful. And then heading in towards this 11th corner, X corner, I believe they renamed it a couple of years ago. Short run then down towards the double left-hander of Pouon, and as you can see, let's see what happens then with Kyokodo. Yeah, he has to brake, going down to second gear at the moment. 139 kilometers still going through Pouon as we now get back onto the power as we head towards the next section, the campus section, heading in towards the quick right left-hander through this chicane. Nice and easy on the entry here, and you can see the drivers, or at least Kyokodo, avoiding the curb on entry in towards the first part of campus, trying to take the curbs elsewhere as we now head our way in towards Stavelot, keeping nice and steady on the throttle, nice and steady through the gears as well as we now fly through Paul Frere corner. And you can see very patient, trying to get back onto the throttle, on about half throttle before he went full throttle, just as he was going through the apex of the corner. Now it's foot firmly to the floor. Let's see, as we ride on board with Kyokudo, how he tackles Blanchimont. Does he lift going through this fast left-hander? Yes, he does, but it's a dab of the brakes and then back onto the power just on the exit there, as now we head our way on towards that bus stop chicane, once again braking nice and early for the bus stop chicane, keeping it nice and collected as we now try and get as much curb as possible, try and keep the track as short as possible. And now it's the short run to the line for Kyokudo. And what is this lap time going to be for the championship leader? It's a 2:43.9 from Kyokudo, and it puts him at the moment at the top of the table by half a second. Not a bad lap there, Nicholas.
Definitely not a bad lap. You could really see how much the car was squirming about. The tires were basically looking like blocks of ice even. So he's really trying to keep that car calm and collected through especially all of these lower speed sections, but really struggling with that because a lot of standing water as well on the track, I think. So, you know, you just really have to carve your way through there. And of course, with a car carving your way through water is a bit more difficult than with a boat. So maybe something like a Bentley would be more sufficient in this weather condition.
Oh, absolutely. And it's good to mention here that a championship will follow to pick the best Maltese driver to represent Malta in the FIA Motorsport Games. So what better way for Kyokudo to try and put himself on the map here for that drive? And, well, going by what he's done this season, 3 out of 3 wins so far, he looks like he's going to be one of those names on that shortlist there.
Yeah, most definitely. Kyokudo has already been showing very, very good performances all over the board. Of course, we have Mikael here as well. You know, he's been showing very, very good performance. And let's not forget, Windy Boy almost could have won Monza if it hadn't been for that one mistake, missing the brakes and then getting reset at turn 1. So if it hadn't been for that, you know, he was against the wall with his back before. So Kyokudo, he can get intimidated by the other drivers. But, of course, they just have to get that last piece of information, that last push together.
Yes, and that's going to be the key, isn't it, as we head in towards this Belgian race with 12.5 minutes just about on the clock left of qualifying. And we've only had, of course, the one flying lap from all the drivers so far. Such is the length of this circuit as we see Zelino, I do apologise if I butcher any names, but it's going to happen, unfortunately, heading in towards that campus section. And 5th place so far, but you can see 4.2 seconds off that pole time. That's a huge gap, especially even at a 7-kilometre behemoth circuit like Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, I think Ivan is really struggling with these conditions because overall so far, he was always the man who was fighting to be right at the back of the top 3. Always fighting to be, well, up in that spot and trying for more. But here, these conditions, they really don't seem to work for him at all.
No, I'd rather them than me, that is for sure, especially in these wet weather conditions. As Kyokudo there, you can see 2:43.3 goes even quicker than his last attempt and gets right down into those 2:43s. Let's see what Mikael can set as a new lap time. He'll be across the line momentarily. We'll see on the bottom left-hand screen, see if what he can make. Ivan setting a 2:45.5. There's Windy coming across the line. Does he get an improvement on his lap time? Doesn't look like it there, as he now makes his way down towards La Source hairpin. And I think Zelino right behind as well didn't improve on his lap time. So I'm going to assume then that Mikael probably didn't improve on his lap time because we didn't see a lap time come up from him. So whether he's backed off of that lap, he might have just taken it easy for a lap, just try and get some temperature back into those tyres, or at least optimal temperatures. As you see there, Windy really tackling Eau Rouge and then over the top through Radion onto the Kemmel Straight. Always fantastic to see a car right on its limits there as it makes its way through.
Yeah, and definitely they're slower, but, well, it's always too easy to just say, oh, they're only doing 200 kilometers an hour. Then when you just go into the own retrospect, I live in Germany, so we have the wonders of the Autobahn. So, you know, no speed limits in large sections of it. And even on that, with my Master 3, I just usually go around 130, 150. And that is just on a completely straight piece of road. in the dry, and these guys are doing it with these cars, of course virtual, so it's a lot safer, but nevertheless, you know, they're doing it through corners in the absolute wet, while going down a hill, a quite steep hill. I think what people mostly forget in these camera angles is how steep these hills in the Ardennes Forest actually are.
Yeah, and especially going through Eau Rouge and Radion. I can't quite tell you how steep that hill is until you're there in person and see it. It is so steep up there, and it's amazing how these cars actually tackle the going through Eau Rouge and Radion over the top of the hill, because it's such a huge altitude change for the cars. They've got that little bit of downforce as well, helped by the splitter and the rear wing to try and keep the car planted there. And because we have seen in the past, especially at circuits like Spa-Francorchamps, we've seen it as well at the Circuit de la Sarthe. We've seen these cars lift up in real life and almost tumbled over. I mean, one driver in particular, Mark Webber, knows that story all too well in the old Le Mans production cars, which is why they had to have a huge redesign in the aerodynamics to try and keep these cars planted even more. So there's a lot of work that these cars go through in order to keep them where they are on the track. Just under 9 minutes to go then, and we see Daman making his way on towards the start-finish line. Let's see if he can make an improvement on his lap time as he crosses the line. And it doesn't look like any improvement was made, but he's looking like he's going to tackle La Source with some anger there. Kyokudo still making his way through Eau Rouge and Radion, still the pole position man here. Oh, losing that back end, sliding out there. Wow, that was a huge recovery from him. He gets a second penalty, but I think he'll take that, to be honest with you, with the fact that he actually saved that. So fair play to him. But that's how hard he's pushing there, Nicholas.
Yeah, most definitely. And as you said, you know, just a little bit too much over the limit. Caught it very nicely, but of course, the Gran Turismo penalty system is going to say, sorry, mate, but you were off track there, so we'll have to give you a second on that one.
Yeah, I've just been given my own 1 second penalty. It's actually pronounced Cellino, so I do apologise. I told you I was going to butcher at least one name, so at least it's that one, and we've got it out of the way. We're okay now. We can continue. Kyokudo then making his way all the way through now in towards X corner, and again, as you said before, the camera angles don't do the amount of undulation this track has any justice whatsoever.
Yeah, it's. I think this especially when you actually walk up this the circuit in reverse, because Spa is one of these very rare circuits where you can actually go around basically the entire circuit just on a passageway, and really just walking up that little straight in front of Pouhon, you really notice how much it goes up, because the last time I was here it was, I think, for the 24 hours of Spa last year. So we were having a bit of a cooler weather, so it wasn't all too bad. But before that, I was here for the 2016 6 hours of Spa, and it was over 30 degrees, so you just sweat buckets before you even make it up to that X corner. And yeah, I think sweating buckets also are the drivers right now, especially Kenneth, who is still trying to get some grasp with the situation.
Yes, he is. He needs to set a good lap time here with only a few short minutes to go. Windy now making his way in towards this campus section. Very easy to overcommit going through these corners, as Windy there, a little bit of a tail coming out there through the second part of that campus section as we head our way now in towards Stavolo, as Kyokudo comes into the pits then. So this is going to be a pit stop, new tyres on, so he's left it late, but he's going to be onto a new set of tyres there. That best lap time of a 2:43.3 is yet to be beaten. He's leading this qualifying session by 1 second, in fact 1.1 seconds. Mikhail is also into the pits onto a change of tyres. Away goes Kyokudo as he makes way out of the pit lane. There is Mikhail. He's 1.1 seconds off that pole position at this moment in time, but maybe a fresh set of tyres will help him draw closer to that. And Kyokudo rejoins onto the circuit once again for possibly 1 or 2 more attempts at maybe even getting even more time out, as Ivan, Daman and Cellino also into the pits as well.
Yeah, and this will really be the most important part of this entire session, I think. You could see Kyokudo only has 54% of his fuel tank left, so half of the full fuel tank has been burned out basically. So he's basically just really going to try and put it all into one last-ditch effort to make that gap even bigger. Mika, meanwhile, is going to make a huge last-ditch effort to get that gap down, or even maybe overtake Kyokodo. So it's going to be really a battle of wits here now. Who can keep his composure? Who can keep the car under control better?
Yeah, as Kyokodo now tackles Brussels there, keeping it nice and tidy. You don't want to take too much out of the tyres, but you know you've got to get some heat into them as well as the brakes, because after you've gone through Eau Rouge and Radion, there might be a little bit of a touch on the brakes there, but you've got the whole Kemmel Straight to have those tyres and brakes cool down. So you've really got to keep your wits about you going in towards that Lecom section. Kyokodo, though, tackling Vuon, and again the back end just wants to step out of him, but he does well to keep that car in check.
Yeah, just one of these little wiggles that are coming through more and more. And I mean, he is a confident man in his Audi, but nevertheless, I think that is probably, yeah, quite a nervous factor. And of course, as we're getting directions as well, Ivan and the man, of course, they are basically fighting for the last podium spot since we are missing Windy Boy today. But yeah, I think those two guys, the man we haven't seen as much of as from Ivan, but of course, the man, he has been improving quite a lot in the last couple of races he was in. He has been improving all the way through this series, and Ivan constantly just knocking on that door for the podium. So today it's going to be all down to whether Ivan can finally get his podium, or if the man will be fast enough to steal it away from him.
And to be fair, those two are separated by less than a tenth of a second as it stands in this qualifying session. So they're really going to be at each other for the race if that qualifying is anything to go by. Just over 3 minutes of the session to go then of qualifying. And of course, Kyokodo still at the top of the table at this moment. He's just tackled La Source there, putting that power down. You can hear the engine singing as it leaves La Source hairpin, now going downhill towards Eau Rouge and Radion. You'll see then lots of curb being taken on the entrance in towards Eau Rouge, and then we go through Radion over that blind corner there, and now on towards that Kemmel Straight, and just doing enough there to keep that car in check as he made his way over the crest of Radion and down the Kemmel Straight.
Absolutely crazy how much he's pushing there. Of course, you know, everyone's already always saying, you know, sim racing, it's of course not as difficult as real racing, because in real racing you need a lot more confidence and a lot more courage to push this hard. But I'd argue that sim racing is just a bit more difficult on the pure concentration part, because you get so much less input. In a real car, you feel all these little subtle movements that we see here, all these little tiny wiggles that he has. You feel that through the seat, of course, through the G-forces that are just slightly offset, all of this there. You see this little slide here. You feel that through the seat and all that. And in sim racing, you just feel it through, well, when you're on a wheel, you feel that through the force feedback, so you have to concentrate on that. If you're on a controller, then you're playing in ultra hard mode, because you're just getting very, very subtle vibrations here. And of course, we have customers of both products here today. So definitely my respect to all of the drivers here, because to drive this fast in these conditions, that's going to take a lot of concentration.
And it takes a lot of skill as well. It's very easy to push as hard as you can, but you've got to make sure that you keep it on the island as Kyokodo's sliding its way through that last part of the of Stavolo, and now making his way on towards that last curved straight, if you like. And well, the thing about Kyokodo is he's a car tuner and a real racing driver. He races in hill climb, quarter miles, time attack, and well, misleadingly, he's a fan of Honda, although he's driving an Audi today. So we'll gloss over that one as he now makes his way through Blanchimont and also now makes his way on towards that bus stop chicane. Heavy braking here. I wonder if he can improve his time. As you can see, even under braking, that car does not want to stay in a straight line. He now tackles that bus stop chicane. Onwards he goes now towards the start-finish line. Is this going to be an improvement then on his 2:43 that he's already set as he heads his way towards the line? Yes, it is. It's a 2:42.6. Great lap time then from Kyokodo. He's clearly happy with that one as he makes his way down towards La Source there, weaving in celebration. Mikhail 2:43.8 brings that gap back down to 1.1 seconds. as Ivan here in third place in the qualifying session so far. He now makes his way through that bus stop chicane. We've only got a handful of seconds left of qualifying. So for Kyokodo, we definitely saw he's happy with that lap. He's happy to end his session there. Mikhail will have to keep an eye on. Ivan makes his way towards the line and sets a 2:45.4 and brings himself within 2/10 of Mikhail. So a good lap there. Demand there. I don't think he's set an improvement because he's now 1.7 behind. So he must have improved then if he went further or closer to the car in front. 2:45.6 then from Demand. Shelinu, it sets a lap time 2:46 and all the fives is fifth place for him. Windy, sixth place, and Kenneth, I believe that is right behind there in seventh place, although he is yet to complete his lap. He now tries to make his way through Stavilo and onwards now towards that curve straight towards Blanchimont once again. He's 11 seconds off Kyokodo at the moment. I think he's just he's having fun out there, that's for sure. Now to tackle Blanchimont, trying to steer that car through. To be honest with you, I didn't hear him on the power going through there. We'll have to see if he abandons this lap time, making his way towards the bus stop chicane. He will be the last driver really to set a lap time. We've only got so the checker flag is out, and that 2 minutes is to count down the end of the session for all drivers to cross that line. So Kenneth then makes his way towards the line. Can he improve on his lap time? No, he can't. So no improvement there. Kyokodo has definitely backed out there, so he's happy with his lap time. I'm wondering about Mikel. I assume then he's finished his qualifying session, so that's going to be it then. Kyokodo on pole position by 1.1 seconds. Is that a window into what we're about to see in this 90-minute race?
I think it could very well be, because Kyokodo, he's a man who really knows how to control his race pace. He knows when to go fast. He knows when to, hold everything. As Senna would say, you have to know when you have to give everything. You have to know when you have to hold everything. And Kyokodo is really one of these men who knows this. So I think it's going to be a very tough call today, because Mikhail, he seems to be having a bit of issues with the wet weather, but nevertheless, he's always been quite close there. So I think he's one of the guys that we'll still have to watch out for if a mistake happens.
Yeah, and the big question is that can Kyokodo wrap up the title tonight? Obviously, if he wins the race, then that's pretty much a given. If he makes it 4 out of 4 wins, that's pretty much a given that he's going to win this championship. But there's all the talk about doing it in qualifying, putting it on pole position. I always say that's a quarter of the job done. But can he do it into this race?
Well, I definitely think so, because of course we also have our automated formation lap system here, and at Spa it's one of these things. I think the gap is around 1.5 to 2 seconds here, so it's a quite comfortable position to be in, especially with La Source, which is of course one of these corners where it's so nice to just send a dive bomb into. And I think that especially today in our Audi R8 LMS Cup, Kyokodo really wants to be in this position at the start.
Well, then it's going to be a rolling start then as we head towards the start of this 90-minute endurance race for the finale of the HyperX Endurance Series here at Spa-Francorchamps. Kyokodo is going to be the one to lead them across the line. Of course, it is an automated rolling start system, as you quite rightfully said, Nicholas. The control will be handed to the player in that many seconds. And so we're underway then, and Kyokodo is going to absolutely fly off into the distance there. Mikhail was halfway through the last part of the bus stop chicane, so Kyokodo will take that advantage quite nicely then as he heads his way now down towards La Source hairpin as we get this race underway. The finale is underway. Mikhail then is in second place. There you can see Ivan in third, Demand making his way through La Source in fourth place, Shelino in fifth with Windy in sixth and Kenneth there in seventh. So we now make our way on towards the first challenge, heading our way through Eau Rouge and up the hill through Radion. It's so easy to overcommit on the first lap here when tyres and brakes are not quite up to temperature. Looks like so far though everybody is going to be sensible through it for a change as we now make our way on towards that Kemmel straight. And of course all that pressure for Kyokodo to really perform in this session to try and wrap up this championship here tonight. Well, he's already done that because 3 seconds ahead of Mikhail this early on into the race. What he's got to make sure he does now is keep his mistakes to a minimum. Kenneth there, we're watching in 7th place. We're going to have a replay here. What happened to Kenneth then? Over the top of Radion, runs very wide on the exit. And does he keep that under control? Yes, he does. So, slightly onto the grass, though. He's playing with fire there, that's for sure, but he manages to get away with that one and keeps it on the track. That was the most important thing. As there we can see Kyokudo, we're back live now with the action. 3.2 seconds ahead there and a pretty clean start overall there, but Kyokudo really benefited from that start there, Nicholas.
Yeah, definitely. That is the big issue with the automated formation lap here, because in the dry at least the top 2, I think top 3 even maybe, they're at least out of the bus stop chicane, but in the rain it seems that you get the green flag a little bit earlier, and that is Ivan having a quite big Code Brown moment there, but keeping it together out of Puon, so very, very well held from him, but of course that gap to Daman is going down.
It is, yes, and Daman will just be trying to keep his wits about him as well as we head in towards Stavolo. And to be honest with you, it's going to be a close battle here for 3rd place in this race. It's going to be a close battle as well for 3rd place in this championship. There you can see Gelino there in 5th place at the moment, being chased down by Windy, but he's just trying to keep his cool at the moment as we now make our way through in towards Blanchimont, which is further down this little straight here. There is Kyokudo, there is Mikhail, and that gap really has stabilised at this moment. Since we got towards Lake Com, it stayed around about the same. Just over 3 seconds here is the gap between Kyokudo and Mikhail, but you can see through that bus stop chicane, look how much time Kyokudo gains there. It's 0.4 of a second he gains just through that chicane alone. But the first lap of this endurance has been completed. Kyokudo leads the way, and all 7 drivers were exactly where they qualified. But watch out for that battle for 3rd place. There is Ivan making sure he tackles La Source there, gets his braking spot absolutely spot on here, and Daman is going to be all over him pretty much for this first stint of the race.
Yeah, definitely. Daman really is looking like a very strong opponent today. Right behind that, of course, we have Shalino and Ilwindi also battling it out. So at least in the midfield, once again, we have quite a close battle. And Ilwindi, I think, with being so close for Rouge and Radion with spray and everything, and a lot of attack on the right side curb, doing very well to keep that under control there, yes.
That's too brave almost, isn't it, really, from Windy, playing with those curbs there and hoping they don't bite back. It's so easy to get onto those curbs, and the tyres just say, no way, there's too much water here, and just pretty much give up on trying to disperse the water that's out on the track. We're on board then with Ivan looking behind at Daman as they now make their way out of Lake Com, down towards Brussels they go, and you can see there, that power, even with traction control, the rear tyres are having a hard time getting that power down.
Yeah, of course, they can only part so much water out of the way. They can only really, so to say, walk on so much water, because it's just, it's just difficult when there's a lot of standing water, which is evidently here the whole time. Of course, with all this elevation, you also have a couple of smaller rivers forming, which really don't help the matter either, because as soon as you have like a small river, as soon as you have a flowing motion, it gets even more unpredictable, simply because you just can't properly get the handle on it or consistently.
Yes, and we're expecting those drivers to try and handle these conditions as best as they possibly can. And as we were speaking in practice and in qualifying, we're expecting 4 stops in this race. That doesn't mean we're going to get 4 stops. We could get 3, we could get 5, we could get more than 5, who knows? But we are expecting 4 stops in this race. So the strategy coming into this race gets a little bit interesting, because trying to split 90 minutes into 4 equal segments, especially around a 7-kilometer behemoth that is Spa-Francorchamps, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, definitely not going to be easy, simply because, as you say, it's 7 kilometers. Well, 7 kilometers and 4 meters, to be 100% precise. These 4 meters, just ruining that perfect round number, but, either way, we still love this circuit, and it's of course just so difficult to get all of it right. You just if you compare it to most circuits, it's definitely one of the longest circuits around. If you take circuits like the Nürburgring Nordschleife and Le Mans out of it, Spa would probably be the longest Grand Prix circuit on the planet, I think.
Yeah, and it's up there with good reason as well. And I always say those 4 meters at the end are the most important because that's the exit out of the bus stop chicane. But what do I know? Ivan then making his way now down towards Eau Rouge and then up the hill through Radion. Currently in third place, 1.8 seconds ahead of Daman as we make our way through. And Daman really loves those curbs going through Eau Rouge and Radion there. Maybe when the tyre wear starts to get a little bit more of a problem further into this race, that might be something he has to worry about because it's almost like he's asking for trouble there, isn't he?
Yeah, that is definitely true. But what I'm also realizing, so far from what I saw from the man, his car seems overall a little bit more settled, a little bit more calm than from Ivan. So maybe he's just building his confidence on these curves to attack the curves a little bit more. And by balancing that out with keeping the car a bit more stable for the rest of the lap, maybe if that works out for him, Ivan will wear his tires more and of course will run into that danger zone when the tires are worn, when the car is very loose, just a little bit earlier.
Yes, and as the tyres wear on, they can disperse water less effectively than they did at the start of their stint. So that's what you've got to be careful of. You have to be careful of that aquaplaning, which could happen if you're not careful. Daman, though, falls back to 2 seconds behind Ivan there. There is Shalino, who is being chased down by Windy. Gap has really been 1.5 seconds for the last couple of corners, so Windy is not going anywhere. Shalino is just trying his best to get away. Now the gap goes up to 2 seconds, so obviously Windy, they're not having the best run through Pouhon there. And there is your race leader, championship leader as well. And as it stands, your series winner as well. And, well, he's showing really good pace all throughout, winning 3 races out of 3 so far. And is it any surprise that we find himself 4.3 seconds in the lead of the final round?
Overall, not too much, but, you know, you never know how the race is going to go completely. It's only 8 minutes in, and of course we still have 1 hour and 21 minutes and a lot of that remaining last bit of a minute left over, so there's a lot of time to make mistakes, especially. So, you know, it's not over until it's over.
No, absolutely right. As we have the clock here, we have 80 minutes to go, 81 minutes if you are picky, as we still have all those pit stops to go, so don't rule any action out just yet. Drivers are just getting into their rhythm now. This is the important thing. Not only is it raining out there, but you're at Spa-Francorchamps, a technically difficult circuit to master, so you've got to get your braking points right every single time. As we enter, I believe this is going to be the 4th lap of the endurance so far. As we see Ivan now, it's his turn to tackle Eau Rouge and Radion here. How much curb does he take on the way in? Plenty, that's the answer there. And again, he's riding the curb as well, going up the hill through Radion. So very similar line to what we've seen from Daman there. So Daman obviously a lot more confident in this car than maybe other drivers, because he's really attacking those curbs at a high-speed section. It's just bravery, isn't it, really?
Well, it's bravery, or he doesn't know any better. So we've seen both already. We've seen in one of the older casual races, we've also seen people tackle that curb in the dry and get sent to the Shadow Realm on the left-hand side. So, you know, it's really, really, well, how do you say it, the best riding on the razor's edge? So they really have to be absolutely perfect through there and to have to be in absolute control in these extreme moments.
I think I've got a good translation of that one, on the ragged edge. That sounds good, doesn't it? That sounds good. Whoa, big moment of oversteer from Daman. Speaking of on the ragged edge, Daman really pushing there on the exit of X corner as we now head our way in towards Pouhon then. And that double left-hander, Shalino, is now trying to tackle it as well. So easy to understeer, especially on the exit of Pouhon. You can be just too early on the power and find yourself running wide. As soon as you run wide here at Spa, the track really does punish you because it doesn't let you back onto the circuit unless you really slow it down. So you have to be so precise here in the Ardennes Forest in order to get the best out of the car. But we have 1 hour and 19 minutes to go. Kyokodo is at the top of the standings there, 5.6 seconds in the lead at the moment as he tackles Blanchimont there, really attacking the curb on the inside of Blanchimont as well. Mikhail is in second place there as he also tries to tackle that curb on the inside of Blanchimont, making his way up towards the bus stop chicane. It's then Ivan in third place. He's 9.7 seconds back, but he is the last of the podium at this moment in time, and 3.3 seconds clear of Daman as well. So looking pretty comfortable out there, the top three in terms of their podium positions. But with all this time left, there's plenty of time for anything to happen. So keep your eyes peeled on this one. This one is not over, not by a long shot.
I think I also just saw the gap from Cellino to Daman grow quite a bit, and if we look back, Ilwindi is a lot closer than he was before as well, so Cellino must have had a little mistake, and of course you only needed a little slip up at places like Blanchimont to lose a lot of time, simply because, as you said, you're really just busy for a moment, just trying to catch that car, just trying to not hit the wall, because of course these tarmac runoffs, especially in the rain, they don't really have too much of a slowing factor.
No, and that's a huge concern for the drivers. They've just got to make sure that they just keep it on the island as much as possible. Windy trying to tackle now over the edge and over the top of Radion there as we now make our way down the Kemmel Straight, and it's almost like that windscreen wiper is working overtime in these conditions as he now makes his way down towards Lake Om. There is Kenneth though, who unfortunately is just over a minute behind the leader, but I can tell you what, he's having fun out there. That's the main thing. He's keeping it on the track. Had that moment early on the first lap, just go on the exit of or leading on to the Kemmel Straight, I should say. But other than that, we haven't seen much of him, so that's normally a good sign. It means you're staying out of trouble.
Yeah, generally it is a good sign, and I think for him, he's also one of the guys who there was also another good save from him there. Generally, he was one of the guys that is with a lot less screen time just out of the past as well. So he's one of the newer guys around here. Of course, World Pro Racing is always expanding. We also have just people from all skill groups, pro, new drivers and all that. You know, you're always welcome to join here with whatever we do. Just join the Discord, look at the website and register for these races. And, you know, of course, newcomers are always welcome, like Kenneth here. And he's really been learning quite a lot in these last couple pickup races and in this championship. And I think this is probably his first experience in the rain, so the fact alone that he hasn't completely stacked it yet is already quite a good sign.
Oh, a bit of a moment there out of Ick's corner as well, and it's just a bit frightening there, isn't it? But he's got control of the car, that's the main thing. Gelino there in 5th place, 1.9 seconds ahead of Windy then, as he now makes his way on the exit of Stavelo through Paul Frere, and now towards Blanchimont. That fast left-hander here, you can see the cars will dive into the corner. Whether you can keep the back end in check is another question. You find out as you turn in there. As Cellino now makes his way towards that bus stop chicane. You have to slow the car right down to try and tackle this, as the grip is already not in your favour. But he now makes his way towards that start-finish line. Just over 2-second gap between himself and Windy. And at the moment, that gap looks like it's just about stabilised. But as we've already seen in this race, we have seen gaps fluctuate really in between laps. So keeping your cool here, keeping your composure is going to be a long way your benefit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of fluctuating gaps, and that could have been just far enough for maybe a penalty, or I think the GT Sports stewards are quite lenient here. Oh well, just as I said,
just as you
fantastic. Say that. But speaking of fluctuating gaps, of course. You know, we've seen this gap between Daman and Ivan go up and down quite a lot. So now it's back down to 2.6 seconds. We've seen it at over 4 before. So really, it's about you know, how confident and how consistent people can stay right now. And especially when Ivan, for example, starts making mistakes now. Daman, of course, sees that red sign. He sees it's only 8/10, but of course, still, when you see this penalty sign on you, you start losing a bit of confidence, you start being a bit more cautious, and just be a bit too cautious and you start losing excessive amounts of time.
Yeah, and of course as well, don't forget that Deman will see that bit of red over the top of Ivan, so that's going to be his, his cue to try and push on. We're riding on board with him now, in fact, in the cockpit there, and it gives us a glimpse into the tyre wear and the sort of fuel that we're seeing there. So it gives us an idea of what the drivers are going to be looking at right now. So he's just got just over half a tank of fuel, so we're probably looking at maybe 11 laps per stint. And in terms of tyres, well, those rear tyres, they could be in a better state at this early stage in this race.
Well, I think that is definitely always the case in the rain, especially since these guys are really just trying to push on, well, the absolute limit here. Of course, they run a bit lower traction control, seeing from all the power slides. So, I think it's going to be around conserving these tires at the moment. And if they're not that much worn yet, and oh, that is actually a lot of time lost there that Ivan has just had, because that's been 3/10 just now. It's all about just keeping it together, because of course the more they wear, the more they will lose grip, and that's just going to expand exponentially. And of course with this accelerated tire wear, that's not going to be doing any favors.
No, not at all, as we still see that Ivan had that 0.8 of a second. Of course, that gap or that penalty does come down eventually, but you do have to back off if you want that time to really disappear. There is Windy then, just making his way out of the bus stop chicane and onto the start-finish straight. I reckon he's had a moment somewhere, because he's now 10.5 seconds behind Shalino, so he's might have had a moment out there in this race. But just looking at the car then, it doesn't look like it's had a meeting with the barriers there, so maybe just a slight mistake and having to back out as he now makes his way down towards Eau Rouge and Radion once again. He's 43.9 seconds off the leader, but to be honest with you, Kokono is absolutely bossing it out there right now. Not made really any mistakes, and 7.1 seconds in the lead of Mikhail. So if you were a betting man, you'd put money on Kyokudo wrapping up the series title here and now. But of course, we've still got an hour and 12 minutes to go. So it's all about keeping that car on the track and making sure you keep your mistakes to a minimum and make sure those mistakes don't cost you your race.
Yeah, most definitely. But as we can also see here, how he's taking his line through Puon, and probably now here as well. Look at how he's going in there. Like, the car is still struggling to get grip over all 4 tires, just slowly sliding into Piff Puff there. And again, with that little bit of drift angle almost, you can really see how confident he's getting, how certain he is of his conditions of the tires. So, he's really just getting more and more confident. As you say, if you were a betting man, I would bet on Kyokudo right now as well.
Yeah, we just got over 70 minutes of the race to go. Still expecting our first pit stops, and Ivan, well, the penalties have got even worse for him because he's picked up another one. Now he's got 1.4 seconds worth of penalties, which of course have to be taken out. They can be served at your pit stop, but of course that's a lot of time to lose in the pit lane there. 1.4 seconds, especially when the gap behind you is only 1.8. That could be a position in the pits right there. So there's a dilemma then for Ivan. Does he just push on now and lose the time in the pits, or does he try and back off and reduce that penalty as much as possible?
I mean, for him at the moment, it's the safest bet to just go on. You can also choose to not deliver this time in the pit stop, and of course just wait for it until the race end. But that of course brings the risk with it that you just collect a few other penalties, which then, just completely throw you off. And especially with this small gap here, he has a 1.4 second penalty. Right now, if they had finished like this, I think just now that would have given the man the win for P3 just by a couple of thousandths of a second. So these penalties really cannot be underestimated.
No, absolutely not. And there's still a long way to go. So there's still plenty of time for him to get those penalties off his name there. But at the same time, there's plenty of time to find more penalties out there. He's already received 2 in the first 20 minutes of this race. So it's a long, long time if you keep racking up those penalties there, as he now makes his way onwards onto the Kemmel Straight and towards Lake Holm. So it looks like he's just going to keep pushing on. That's what he's chosen here as he now makes his way on towards Les Combes, using that curb on entry there to just try and make the corner as wide as possible so you can try and carry a bit more speed through. But this is going to be an intriguing battle for third place as we head through the race. And of course, it's that question of when Ivan will serve his penalty. Does he serve it as he lifts off going around the track? Does he serve it in the pit lane? Or does he wait till the very end of the race to serve all of his penalty then? As he gets a big slide there on the exit of X Corner, now making our way, out of Brussels. Now we're into X Corner as we head our way towards Pouhon once again. And of course, what you have to say is that it does provide this intriguing battle we have for third place. There's all sorts of strategy going on here, and there has to be that extra element now for Ivan in terms of what to do about his penalty.
And that is one of these frightening things that you really just don't want in the back of your mind as a driver. You really have to just focus on how am I going to play this strategy-wise? Am I just going to try and copy Kyokodo, or am I going to try and go for a longer stint? You just want to do everything you can to just get away from the man chasing you. In this case, Daman, quite literally. And, I think it's really just something that's tripping off Ivan at the moment. It's bringing him out of his balance. Because in Sector 2 especially, you can just see how Daman is catching more and more and more. Granted, Ivan normally is a bit faster through Sectors 1 and 3, just probably getting the flow a little bit better. But now, he's even in slipstream range for Daman. So, it's really just not quite coming all together for him right now.
No, and it's just needs to be one of those things where you just have to keep your head down, keep your concentration levels up, because we've still got over an hour to go. So you just not want to make those mistakes, as we see again, that's Daman just getting a little bit wayward out of the bus stop chicane. But in fairness to him, he's gained time on Ivan ahead of him as we now make our way down towards La Source hairpin for the 9th time for these drivers at least. For Kyokodo, it could be anywhere between 10 and 11 by now, by the pace he's going. But as we see, here he is. He's actually got 1.2 seconds worth of penalties, which implies that he's had 2 off-track moments at least out there, because, he's 9.4 seconds in the lead. As we see, Windy has come into the pit lane then. That is from 6th place. He's got a minute on Kenneth behind him, so he'll easily rejoin in 6th place as his pit crew are ready for him. In he comes in towards that purple, green, orange. It's pretty much every colour on that car as new tyres go on. And what's going to happen here is going to be a lot of fuel on board as well. But how much fuel does he take on? So he's lasted 7 laps on those tyres, which if we think about it is around, I'd say, just under 25 minutes. So if that's going to be his strategy, a stop round about every 25 minutes, then we're looking at 3, possibly 4 stops for him.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. And I think that was maybe a bit of a graphic glitch, but also just a bit of a moment coming out of the pits already. Of course, these tires aren't quite up to optimum temperature yet. So, you have to start pushing immediately, and you have new tires, so better grip, of course, on the long run. But, of course, you have to watch out just a tad when you just start pushing again. Meanwhile, this man here, he's making his way around Stavelot and Paul Frère, where the old circuit, the old village circuit, the 13-kilometer layout of Spa, rejoins the current layout. He's just in his own little space here, and I'm really interested if he will reply to Windy's pit strategy now.
Yeah, because of course he'll see in the standings that little pit stop marker next to Windy's name. But obviously it's all about the driver confidence. He's got the fastest lap of this race, 2:43.4, and you can see that he eased off going in towards the bus stop chicane there to try and reduce his penalty. In fact, Mikhail also has a penalty making his way in towards that bus stop chicane. And the bus stop chicane seems to be a really good place to try and reduce your penalty. As we see now, 2nd place man Mikhail into the pits. So that's going to call something from the leader. Now you can see there that 20% of his fuel tank left pretty much. So that's an interesting one. So how much fuel does Kyokodo have on board? So that'll be an interesting one to see how he gets on. He stayed out though, and of course passing the old or the GT pit lane on the right hand side. Let's see how he's doing for fuel. Well, it's just dipped under a quarter of a tank at the moment, but those rear tyres they're going to be questioning him and giving him some problems sooner rather than later. So I expect he's going to pit in on the next lap.
Yeah, I think maybe Mikael is just trying to calculate that in as well. He's now up to 88% of his fuel tank again, and yeah, I think it's really just something about taking it safe here, because Kyokudo, of course, he is not in a position where he has to take something safe. He was basically 10 seconds ahead, but nevertheless, you know, if you just get that tad bit too cocky, especially in the rain at Spa, you will regret it quite quickly and quite abruptly.
Yeah, his gap is now 27 seconds, of course, because Mikael came into the pit lane, so that promotes Ivan and Deman onto the podium places, albeit temporarily. But there is your race leader, championship leader, and as it stands, series leader 2, Kyokudo making his way now through Puon. And that 0.8 of a second penalty won't trouble him too much. Ivan, with that 1 second penalty, now makes his way on through X corner, through the left-hander here, and now onto that little short straight towards Puon. And Deman really hasn't gone anywhere at all in this battle for second place. It is second place right now. It was third place, as he still hasn't got the penalty next to his name, but he sees that little graphic over the top of Ivan there. His penalties have now gone down to a second, and yet Ivan's extended the gap between himself and that third place driver.
Yeah, I think overall, they're all just trying to push right now to just make it to the 1 hour mark. Because at that point, you're basically realistically in for a 2-stop. And, well, I mean, it can be easy and just be said, you know, we're trying to just copy what the fastest guy is doing. But of course, they will all have done their own research, and of course, a lot of stuff goes into these things. Like if they spin, for example, the tires get worn quite a lot. So maybe at that point, you know, instead of driving on completely worn tires, it's a bit better to go in for an early pit stop, try to go for a 3-stop instead. Or instead, you know, you go for this normal 2-stop, which costs you the least amount of time. But it's all going to come down if this strategy is just going to work long term, and how these guys can keep alive these tires for long amounts of time.
Yeah, and that's going to be a huge factor, isn't it? As we see then Ivan and Deman staying out and Kyokudo staying out as well. So what position does that put Mikael in? There he is in 4th place, obviously pitting in a lot earlier than other drivers out there and not filling his tank up to full capacity. So what could be going on in Mikael's head here?
Well, I think in his head it's just going on. I think he anticipated Kyokudo to follow his example there. He didn't quite expect him to do his own thing continuously, or to even go for this long, because just generally normally with the rain tires they do wear faster, so in the rain you basically never double stint a set of tires, you know. So I think he basically just tried to make this one of the races where you pit for the tires wearing off instead of for the fuel being completely run out.
Well, there you can see Deman then tackling that third part of Lecom, and now down the hill we go towards that right-hander of Brussels. There is Ivan in 2nd place, but as you can see, the gap between himself and Kyokudo is always increasing. It's currently at just under half a minute between Kyokudo and Ivan, but of course, Ivan 2nd, Deman in 3rd. Mikael is the only, well, you've got Mikael and Windy pitting in so far in this race, and that's going to be an interesting one for Windy. He pitted after 25 minutes in this race, so he's looking like he's going to go for the 3-stop then.
Yeah, which could also help him just in general with the refueling time, because of course you don't refuel and change tires at the same time. First you change tires, then you stay in the pit and refuel, and of course when you're doing a 3-stop you have to wait far less for that refueling time, which could be a big help for you, because if Windy, for example, is just a little bit better on just 1 lap pace, you know, instead of keeping the tires alive for longer, it could be working for his advantage quite well.
Well, there is Windy then tackling Brussels as he makes his way through tentatively there on the throttle, as we have Kyokudo coming into the pits then. So from the race lead, Kyokudo, the series leader, championship leader, and race leader, all in one, comes into the pit lane for his stop then. New tyres and fuel will be at the ready then for the series leader as the crew get to work popping on those new sets of tyres, and now we get to see how much fuel Kyokudo puts onto the car. Now, what do the others do? Ivan comes into the pits. How about Deman? It looks like Deman's actually stayed out then. So that's an interesting call then from Deman. Yes, he has stayed out then as he makes his way now down towards La Source hairpin. So what's going to happen here then? Kyokudo 94% then in the fuel tank and rejoins comfortably in the lead, then heading his way down towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Meanwhile then Deman, well, that's interesting then. He's going even further, even longer with his stint, with Mikhail right behind him.
I think there's something very interesting to see though, because Kyokudo, for this pit stop, he came in with 8% of his fuel left. Ivan came in with 16. So they definitely have a fuel advantage at the moment. And Daman, well, besides just Daman still staying out for even longer, Mikhail, he basically just halved his gap that he had beforehand, because it was at around 9 to 10 seconds. Now it's just barely at 4.
Well, it is a good strategy then from Mikhail, but the problem is he might have been aggressive on his strategy, but that aggression might mean he has to make an extra stop during this race. We'll have to see how that all plays out. Obviously, Mikhail will have a plan B, he'll have a plan C, he'll probably have all the plans all the way down to Z and beyond. But at the moment then, you're right, he has gained time on Kyokudo. The only problem is he's got a car in his way that hasn't stopped Daman. Now, there's nothing stopping Daman from battling for this position, but I think on worn tyres, on a lighter fuel load, coming into the pits sooner rather than later, is he going to put up that fight to Mikhail?
I don't really think so, because in this situation it's not going to do either of them any favors. Of course, if you just want to battle, and ooh, that is actually a very wide line, and that has gone all the way wrong.
Yeah, and he's so lucky there, Mikhail, not to be collected by Daman, and it just looked like a heavy right foot there on worn tyres. Let's have another look at that one. He got wide there, and with those worn tyres, maybe it was just a little too much water getting the tyres all out of shape. And unfortunately for Daman then, he has to try and get back to the pit lane, and that fuel icon will be blinking for him as well, telling him to come into the pit. As you can see, he's got the damage to the front end as well, so that's going to hamper his performance for a little bit. But yeah, definitely has to come back into the pit lane to get some repairs if they're not already repaired, and put some new tyres and fuel on. But that will be a huge disappointment for Daman, because he's now lost even more time to Ivan behind him.
And this is just the big risk that I was talking about. If you just stay a bit too long on these tires, as soon as you start hitting puddles, they're going to be like slicks, especially, as you say, they can't really dispose of water as easily as new tires can, because the profile in these rain tires, you can see the grooves there on these brand new ones that are about to be put on Daman's car. That profile gets less and less and less, so they get more like slick tires, they just swim up in these puddles, and then of course it's just like ice, you have no control over this car anymore.
On a fresh set of tyres now will go in the fuel then for Daman, as Ivan at some point will overtake as Daman is in the pit lane. There is Ivan then going through La Source hairpin, easily out in front of Daman. But just how much time did that spin and collision with the wall cost Daman here? Because he might lose out to a position to Shalinu, as well as Kenneth there at the back of the field. He's had a moment. Let's see what happened then. This is on the exit of Les Combes. He gets onto the curb, then running down towards Brussels. So it's trying to take the line through Brussels there. He's had understeer on the way in, and then the car just did not want to put the power down either to get out of that one. So bit of an odd one, that one. He both understeered and oversteered into the same corner, which is rare when it happens, but to be fair to him, he might be on a controller as well. So this car control that he does have in just about keeping the car in the straight line is great stuff for him.
Most definitely it is, and I think he also hasn't pitted yet, so yeah, even more of impressive stuff, because old tires, of course, and as you said, it's not so often that we see the car just starting to first understeer and then four-wheel slide off the track. But when it happens, it usually happens because the tires are completely worn down. And this is definitely the case. You can see how much he's struggling right now. Just barely any traction. No traction control in the world can save you with this.
No, and the way traction control works, it can only do so much before it kind of feels like it gives up, as Kenneth now makes his way through in towards that fast left-hander of Blanchimont. Kyokoto, meanwhile, is in the lead of this one, 5.4 seconds ahead of Mikhail. And that pit stop did help Mikhail initially there, Nicholas, but at the moment, Kyokoto is just building that gap once again.
Yeah, Kyokoto is, well, just regaining his confidence once again. I think it was a bit of a shock for him to just see, my goodness, Mikhail did get quite close to that pit stop phase. So I think it took him a moment to recover to his normal form from that. But now he's back in his normal state. You can see the car just dipping in nicely into that little dip in the middle of La Source there, and then just straight shooting back out and starting to push once more.
Yes, as he now makes his way on towards Eau Rouge and Radion there. Mikhail, second place in this race, 5.6 seconds behind, but he's got a really healthy gap to third place man Ivan. And in that pit stop phase then, Demand did rejoin ahead of Cellino, even after that spin there, so he recovers to fourth place, but that's the important part. He's 15 seconds behind Ivan, which even with that spin and that off, I don't think that would have cost him 15 seconds. I think Ivan would have rejoined in front of Demand no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with this spin, especially like just the damage at the front, if you don't want something at Spa, it's front-end damage that costs you downforce, and that is actually quite close to the wall. So Ivan gets very lucky there, as we just say how he's gaining now in comparison to the man. He almost made a mistake that might have cost him even more dearly if he had hit that wall there.
That was very, very close, wasn't it? But he manages to keep it on all four tyres and gets it back onto the track. And obviously no penalty needed, because I think he lost quite a bit more time than he would have gained running wide there, especially at that, going out of Radio. But now he makes his way in towards Brussels, and yeah, that has cost him a little bit of time, because that gap between himself and Demand has fallen to 14.3. So that's probably why he didn't get any sort of penalty for that one, is because he actually lost time overall. Cellino there is in fifth place. He's 9 seconds back on Demand, as the cars are pretty much evenly spread out across the circuit now. We get to Windy there, who's 12.5 seconds back on Cellino. Now, of course, Windy, remember, was the first one to stop in this endurance, and there is Kenneth there, who is now a lap down, going into sort of 51 minutes to go. But I'll tell you what, he's either having fun out there, or he's regretting signing up for this heavy race or heavy rain race here at Spa. I'm going to go with the former, because it does look like he's enjoying himself out there.
I think it's a mix between fun and terror, especially with a tank sniper like that. That just comes out of nowhere at the exit of one of the fastest corners on the circuit. But, like, fun and terror, it's usually a mix that is, generally, like, it's moments that are quite close together, especially driving in the rain and anything that you can basically just compete in.
Well, he did get a penalty for running wide there, but it's only half a second, so he should be able to wear that off in his stint. But there is Kyokoto leading by 6.5 seconds. That gap is going up and up once again, as we have around 50 minutes to go. Then he tackles Eau Rouge, and up the hill through Radion he goes. Mikhail is in second place, 6.6 back, as we see him try his hand at Eau Rouge and Radion there. Pretty similar lines between the two of them there, just trying to take as much curb as possible. Then about half a minute behind, it is Ivan in third place, but he looks like he's trying to hold the fort then for that last podium position, with the mistake from Demand in fourth place, now putting himself 15.3 seconds behind a shot of the podium. But we still have 50 minutes to go in this race. We've already seen quite a couple of things happen, including Demand having a friendly chat with the wall, and unfortunately losing that friendly chat. However, we still have more than half a race to go, so we still have plenty of action to bring you.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, with Spa, as we have also another penalty to bring the viewers here, because it's just so easy to mess up a little bit of that. The entire trajectory goes off for Radion, and of course, you can then immediately get a penalty. But yeah, a lot more attention and a lot more, how do you say it, suspense to bring, especially because, as we see here, error and tragedy are never far away in the rain at Spa, so I think it's definitely worth just to keep watching to see what happens with these guys.
And make sure you do keep watching. We're going to cut to a couple of adverts here. We'll be back with the action very shortly. Don't go away.
This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport. This stream is powered by Melita, using Melita Gigapower Internet. World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
For only €5 a month, experience every high-definition moment on your TV, tablet, phone or PC. Great teams, great moments, and so much more. TSN from Melita is your ticket to stay in the game. Visit melita.com/sports.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
Wish your Wi-Fi network would just work in any room? Our new Stellar Wi-Fi is AI assisted to give you the smoothest, fastest possible Wi-Fi throughout your home. Stellar Wi-Fi, assisted by AI, exclusive to Melita. Find out more in-store or online.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the stream. And of course, the final round of the HyperX Endurance Series. And we've seen a couple of incidents out there, mainly someone finding the wall, Deman finding the wall early on in his, or late on, I should say, in his first stint. But other than that, it's been plain sailing, no pun intended, for our championship leader.
Yeah, it's definitely been a smooth race so far for Kyokodo, but it's also pretty much time for the last couple pit stops. He will, of course, still be going for another, or I would say around 10 minutes, but you can also see how he's already sliding his new tires around there. So really pushing on the limit, while Mikael seems to have been in another pit stop already.
Yes, so he's come in, so he really is going for that aggressive strategy to try and get himself back into this racer. I think he's got the feeling that there's no point going for the same strategy as Kyokodo. You're only going to gain something if you try something different. So that's exactly the strategy he's going to go for. So we'll have to see how that develops and how his pace develops in this race, because at the moment he's going to have to make possibly one more stop than Kyokodo going into it. But of course, make sure you do join the community if you do like the action so far, and that is by registering on worldproracing.com. So make sure you go over there. There's weekly casual races, special events, and catering for everybody from amateur to professional racing. So make sure you go check out the website, check out the social media as well, and we'll see you there. Meanwhile, Mikael there running very wide on the exit of Blanchimont as he makes his way on towards the entrance in towards the bus stop chicane, and that gap has come down slightly It was 38.9 seconds, but you can just see through that bus stop chicane that Mikael is losing time. Ivan in third place, then 14.1 now ahead of Demand. That gap really has stabilised. It's coming down gradually, but not at a rate that Ivan needs to worry or panic at this stage of the race. There is Demand then, who is now a minute behind the leader, but he's 14.5 behind Ivan. He's 12.5 ahead of fifth place driver Shelanu, who finds himself in that position. Sorry to cut across you there, Nicola.
Don't worry about it, mate. It's pretty much a calmer point right now in the race. So Shelanu, he's just going to try and put a few good lap times in, try to take an advantage out of Demand's earlier crash. And Kenneth is now in for a pit stop as well. I think I think he was in for a first pit stop earlier, but for a very short refuel on that apparently.
Yes.
So with 4%, that is pretty much on point. That is just running on fumes. So
He gets on a new set of wet weather tyres, and it's going to be touch and go whether he can get this stint to the end of the race, because he'll have to do 38 minutes on this stint. We'll have to wait and see. He's filled the tank completely then, so I don't know, 38 minutes on a full tank there? I mean, it's possible if he does lift and coast, but to me, that's at least another stop.
Yeah, it definitely should be another stop because, well, we saw how it can just last over half an hour with pretty much the full tank, as we saw from the man, even though he had that little spin there. That is a lot of wild riding there for Kyokudo. I think that's not what he's going to want to do for the next just half hour of this race, especially because this is just a bit too unsettled to constantly keep an eye on, I'd say.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to be wearing those tyres out either in this late of his second stint. But he is the race leader right now, leading by just under 40 seconds ahead of Mikael. But Mikael obviously has made one extra stop, in one stop more than Kyokudo, so that's why he finds himself that 40 seconds behind. But the thing about Mikael is he can push. He doesn't have to worry about the tyres, doesn't have to worry about the fuel. His strategy is to go hard and fast in this race for as long as possible. He may have to make an extra stop because of that, but he's hoping that the time he makes up pushing as hard as he can will be more than the time he loses making that extra stop. But it does really rely on you pushing as hard as you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, honestly, at the moment, the gap is slowly coming down to Kyokudo, so he's doing a good job at it right now. But the difficult thing will be, if he's just going to bring that pressure up and that gap down enough to maybe force Kyokudo into a mistake, because we see that he's just dancing on a razor's edge right now, Kyokudo, but he's just not quite at the point where he would throw the car away.
Dancing on a razor. I've got to steal that one from you, Nicholas. That's a really good phrase. I like that one. Mikael then now onto the Kemmel straight. He finds himself 10 seconds ahead of Ivan there, and well, we could have had a good battle for the podium places, but Deman had that earlier moment going through the campus section and dropped the back end on the first half of it. Found himself a chunk of the wall, and unfortunately then had to come into the pits because that was the lap he was pitting in on anyway. So he really has found himself all the way down the order, and it's in that perilous position where you're in no man's land. He's 12 seconds behind Ivan, but 14.5 seconds ahead of Shelanu. So he's just got to keep his head down here. You can always find that if you're on your own out there, if you feel like you're not in a race, you can let complacency take hold, and that's when the mistakes start creeping in. But I mean, you must have had that scenario before where there's not a lot going on around you, or as he runs a little bit wide actually going through Brussels, just about keeps it on the track there and inside of the white line. But Nicholas, how do you guard against complacency, especially in a race like this?
Well, you certainly have to stay on the limit the entire time. You just have to push, and stay focused. And of course, in the rain, to constantly push, it's incredibly difficult. But to stay focused, you really don't have much of a choice, but you just have to have that perfect balance between, pushing and just staying calm. and staying focused. So it's really just, well, I think it's something that you just learn over time most of the time. But you know, these guys here, they have a lot of driving experience, maybe not so much in the rain. So I think it's going to be really tested for the remainder of the race, because these gaps, as you said, this complacency, it can just sort of happen just in the blink of a moment. You just sort of out of the loop, and you just throw the car away, and like this.
Speaking of throwing the car away, that is the man who's found himself meeting with the wall. So this is going through the Paul Frere section as he now makes his way through. So what happens here? Oh yeah, he drops it just on the exit there, and that's a heavy collision with the wall. And that just looked like a car that wasn't ready to have full throttle powered through those rear tyres, if you like. And the car saying you're having a laugh as it spins around. But that's the second excursion he's had, and the second of those that's met with the wall as well. Now, whether he decides to pit in after that one, let's see what happens. He does decide to pit in after that. No surprise, really. He's got just over 33 minutes of this race to go. By the time he rejoins the track, it'll probably be around about 32 minutes. 20% of his fuel there, so maybe a lap or two earlier than what he would have liked. However, he's in the pits now for what he hopes will be his last stop of this race. So Chelenu here really has to take advantage of this. This could be a chance for him to grab 4th place with Deman's second excursion into the wall.
That is definitely a good point. I think Deman really, he just has to completely refill his car right now, get it up full spec, start pushing like hell, and just keep it out of the wall now. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on him right now. And there we are, fully fueled up car to make that 33 minutes stint. And maybe put that traction control maybe 1 or 2 ticks higher, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, even with the track control as low as it is, if you have it on the 1 or 2 setting, it can still lead to you just spinning up the tyres, and they just have no grip whatsoever. You've got to be careful as well with the brakes. They've obviously been sat in the pit lane, so they'll be taking a little bit of time to warm up. Then following that, you've got the Kemmel straight, so the brakes cool down even more before you head in towards Les Combes. So you've got to be careful about your braking distances when you emerge from the pit lane. Kyokodo then still leading the way then. We are expecting him into the pit lane soon. Does he come in? No, he stays out for another lap. So that will take him under the 30-minute barrier of the race to go. And he is 39 seconds ahead. So, well, Mikhail, in, 8 minutes' time, has gained around about 9/10 of a second on that gap. Is it going to be enough to challenge Kyokodo in the last stint?
At the moment, I wouldn't say so. If Kyokodo does a big mistake and we just see that gap coming down by 4/10 here, I think he could be able to make it, he could be able to make it, just if Kyokodo makes a little slip up. But he has to really just keep focused, he has to keep the car in one piece, and he just has to get it home right now.
He crosses the line then to start his 22nd lap of this race as we make our way in towards La Source hairpin. There is Ivan here, who obviously, with the misfortune of Deman having to make an earlier than planned stop, he is now in 3rd place and by quite some margin ahead of Chelenu, who finds himself in 4th place, half a minute off the podium. But as we've already seen from Deman, there are mistakes that can be found out there, and there can be just limits that can be pushed to the extreme. Deman rejoins in 5th place, of course. He's 22 seconds behind Chelenu. He's 20 seconds ahead of Windy. Now, we're expecting Windy in as well at some point, because he obviously was one of the first to stop in this race. As you can see there, the car pretty much on the limit of understeer going in towards Stavelot and in towards Paul Frere section. Let's have a look here. Well, he's got over a quarter of a tank of fuel. His tyres look pretty good though, all things considered. So he's looking to just try and, push as hard as he can. Drops a gear going through Blanchimont there as we now make our way on towards that bus stop chicane. So in terms of fuel, he's not going to make it to the end. But in terms of tyres, well, that's going to be an interesting one. Does he change the tyres? They look pretty good at the moment.
Well, overall, they really do look very, very good, especially considering how long he's been on them. So, quite honestly, this might be a case where I would even actually say, try to double stim those tyres. It would take away a huge part of your pit stop time, so may be able to put a bit of extra pressure on the man.
Yes, as he now makes his way out of La Source Hairpin and on his way now towards Eau Rouge and Radion. There is Kenneth, though, who finds himself 5 minutes off the race lead. But I'll tell you what, he is trying his best out there. We believe he is on a controller, so that makes it even more difficult in these treacherous conditions to have a true feel of the car around here. So fair play to him. But race leader then, Kyokudo, with 1% of fuel in the tank, finds his way in towards the pit lane. So this will be his last stint then. His pit crew are ready. Now, where will this bring him out in terms of battling with Mikhail, who we are expecting to pit again in this race? So the crew are going to have to get to work. On go a new set of tyres here, and on board will go the fuel. But we'll have to wait and see how much fuel that Kyokudo takes onto the Audi here. And we just await to see. It's always that tentative moment here. How much fuel is he going to have? Is Mikhail going to join ahead of him? It looks like it's a long, long fuel stop. There we go. Then Kyokudo leaves the pit lane then. And almost a fuel tank, 96%. So he now rejoins this race then. Where does he rejoin? It looks like he's rejoined in the lead as he makes his way now down the short run towards Eau Rouge. And he has. Yes, he has. So Mikhail here, well, the gap is fluctuating a lot there. We'll get a rough idea as soon as we head onto the Kemmel Straight. But that gap looks like it's 11 seconds. So that's a huge gain of time for Kyokudo there. Ivan, meanwhile, into the pits for his last stop in this race with 10% of fuel on board. On go a new set of tyres. And on board will go the fuel. And, of course, with a bit more fuel in the car, it'll take less time for the car to be refueled to the point where it can get to the end of the race. We've got just over 27 minutes to go. Chelanu is also into the pits from 4th place. And Daman here, this is his time to try and get as many fast laps as possible. He's now making his way towards the bus stop chicane. He's had 2 meetings with the wall, damaging the front end on both times. And both times having to pit in and repair some damage. But he now makes his way on towards the start-finish straight. Ivan, I believe, has just emerged from the pit lane then, out onto the track, so he remains in 3rd place. Yeah, he's well ahead as he makes his way through Eau Rouge and Radion. The interesting one will be is will Chelanu rejoin in front of Daman? There is Daman making his way through the hairpin. As you can see, Chelanu just leaving the box now, making his way through. So that is going to be Daman then, who rejoins in 4th place. Chelanu rejoins in 5th. And that gap between them, 6.7 seconds. But it's going to fluctuate a little bit because the nature of the pit lane exit here at Spa-Francorchamps is you don't get the full advantage of the exit out of La Source Hairpin. So on the run down towards Eau Rouge and through Radion, you're actually off the pace. And arguably all the way down the Kemmel Straight as well. It's only really to Les Combes you start to get on the pace again. But it looks like it's levelled out now. 7 seconds the gap between Daman and Chelanu. Hold on to your hats. That could be a great battle for 4th.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really just... how do you say it? Executive? Not quite. It's going to be very, very important for the man to just stay Aero 3 now, because I think that his damage will still remain partly there. To just keep the car together. He will have a bit more understeer, which should hopefully help his car stability overall a little bit, since he had mostly oversteer problems, even though they were more tire-based than aerodynamics-based, but still. You just have to keep it together now, Daman, and not stick it in the wall. And of course, Daman, he's really on the risk area here, because he just came into the pit lane with 33 minutes to go. He has to make these tires last. He has to make this fuel last. So it could get very close for this position.
He's on a full tank of fuel when he left the pit lane, so he's definitely trying to go to the end and try and eke out as much fuel as he possibly can. Meanwhile, Ivan here making his way through Blanchimont, taking a bit of curb on entry as well. And that really is a race on your own there. 47 seconds behind Mikhail and 23 seconds ahead of Daman. There is Mikhail, though, making his way now on towards the Kemmel Straight. That gap has increased here to 11.7 seconds. So, Kyokudo here, all he has to do is keep that on the island, because I believe anyway, that Mikhail has to make another stop. He's on an aggressive strategy, so this doesn't look like it's going to pay off, unfortunately, for Mikhail.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way, because well, he just wasn't able to put enough pace down onto the track as he was trying to do that, well, as he was trying to make that extra pit stop work. But it was worth a shot. I mean, he was trying to play a different game in this situation here, simply because making the tires last for that long, we saw with the man how risky it is. We see with Kyokuro here how risky it is, and that was very risky indeed. So I think Mikael, he just tried to go a bit more on the flat-out pace approach, which in the end, it is never a bad approach to take. But, you know, maybe he just made his stops, well, his stints a little bit too short. So just trying to make it a two-stopper, but with a bit shorter stints would have been a smarter idea.
Well, he's currently lying in second place, and even after that tail-happy moment from Kyokudo, he's now 12.8 seconds in the lead of this one. Confident now to push on to the end of this race. 23.5 minutes to go in this last event in the HyperX Endurance Series at Spa-Francorchamps, and there is your race leader, and as it stands, the overall series winner as well, looking to make it 4 wins out of 4 in the series. And this is just a small reflection on how his season has gone here, Nicholas.
Yeah, definitely. It's been very dominant from him, very calculated. So when all the stops are over, when all the wind and clouds and a fog have cleared, Kyokuro emerges on top. So if he just keeps it together for these last 23 minutes and 1 second, and now completely 23 minutes, you know, he's just completely there. He's going to be in checkmate, and I think this is already checkmate here, with Mikael coming in for his last stop.
Yeah, the aggressive 3-stop hasn't quite worked here, but he's got to take a pit stop anyway. Off will go the tyres, and eventually in will go the fuel. He should rejoin well clear of Ivan, but any chance of a race win here is going to be a mountain to climb at least. I mean, you're going to have to climb higher than Everest to have a chance of getting a shot at Kyokudo this late on in the race. There is Ivan, though. He's making his way towards the bus stop chicane. He's a minute off the lead overall. However, he's going to make his way onto that straight any moment now. Mikael exits the pit lane, 85% full fuel in the car. So he rejoins now, and he rejoins 40 seconds behind the race leader, and that's a pretty upsetting thing for Mikael to see, where he thought he might have been really close with this alternate strategy. I mean, he had to go for it. If he went on the same strategy, you might have got a similar, if not worse, result than if you tried something different. But at least now he can push on to the end of the race. Those tyres will definitely make it. That fuel will definitely make it. This is his chance now to try and go for some quick laps here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think right now that is the best position that Mikael could be in, you know, to just try and take at least one thing away from Kyokudo right now, you know, just try to push on the limit. You can't really catch him anymore, but you can at least take away that perfect game from him, pretty much. You know, he has low fuel, he has brand new tires with 20 minutes to go, so he could just go for that fastest lap right now. We saw that before at Monza. We actually had Windy get pole position and the fastest lap as well, I think. And just that one reset at turn 1, it cost him his chance to win the race. And quite honestly, he still just hammered away until the last moment in the race. And of course, you know, he was so hugely disappointed that he wasn't able to just beat Kyokudo there. But nevertheless, you could see him pushing until the last second. You could see him just trying to take away that complete perfect, you know, that little bit of perfection from Kyokudo there, and sometimes that's all you just really need for your day. So Mikael just trying to get that last bit of pace out of this car, and you know.
Yeah, definitely. Kyokudo, though, leads the way as he starts the 26th lap with 20 minutes to go. Trying to tackle Lasource hairpin for that 26th time. Riding on board then, a little bit of a kick of oversteer there, and they have plenty of fuel on board then, plenty of life in the tyres as well, as we ride on board with him as we head down the hill, as we head through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, taking plenty of curb on entry. Up the hill we go, and you can just see from the driver's perspective, if they're racing in that cockpit view, it is completely blind as you head over Raidillon there. You've got to have full faith in the marshals there. If there's someone off, they've got to show that yellow flag pretty pronto.
Yeah, definitely. And Well, I mean, it's not like you have a lot of reaction time there.
No,
If someone's off, you just come over the crest, you just barely get around that kink, that right-hand kink, onto the camel straight, and then there's a car there, and you're already still at 220 at least kilometers an hour, even here in the rain. So, yeah, you have to always be aware, not only at a street circuit, like Lance Stroll says, but also just at Spa-Francorchamps in the rain.
As we see now, he's tackling X corner, getting a little bit on the curb there. The car was a bit light in the steering there. That means the back end trying to step out on the driver here as we head our way in towards Poole, and then the double left-hander taking it nice and easy through there. Doesn't want to take too many risks. He's got a 40-second lead at the moment, so he won't be wanting to take too many risks whatsoever as we head towards this campus section. What surprises me, though, is how aggressive these drivers have been on the curbs. It's been great to see that they're attacking, but you know, maybe that's why I'm in the commentary box, Nicholas. I wouldn't be this aggressive with the curbs because they can bite back.
Well, they definitely can, and so far a few times they already have, but you know, these guys, they train the whole time. Of course, from simulator to simulator, it also differs a little bit. You know, just how material systems and all that work in dynamic conditions. So in this, for example, you have quite grippy tires, so overall you are a bit more welcome to attack curves. And these guys, of course, they practice a lot, they prepare, they make mental notes, and, well, I wouldn't doubt literal notes as well to themselves, you know, for this race. And well, they are just coming in here perfectly prepared and obviously just pushing on the limit to come across the line as number one.
Well, there you can see that our race leader has Kenneth ahead of him, who will shortly be 3 laps down. He runs wide at the La Source hairpin just to get out of the way of the race leader, which he does, and Kyokudo puts another lap on Kenneth. Mikhail then 43.2 seconds behind the race leader, and well, commend him, like we've said before, for trying something different. It was the only way he was going to beat Kyokudo. No point being on the same strategy as somebody if they're quicker than you. You've got to try something different. So fair play to him for trying that. Unfortunately, it's now left him 43 seconds off the leader.
Yeah, but overall, well, he had nothing to lose in this situation because he was also able to pull enough of the gap on Ivan. So it's one of these moments where you just have to think to yourself, am I going to just try and copy him and, you know, just go the safe route, or am I going to try and just gain something? You know, just try to go for that riskier move to just constantly be on pushing and not be able to put a foot wrong. But for him here, to some extent it still worked because it's now 27 seconds after all. And that it's this distance alone is already quite a good sign for him that he was just able to pull it off properly.
There's Ivan there in 3rd place and looking to try and get that 3rd place. What a result this would be for him. I mean, he's taken advantage of Deman with his problems with the barrier. Chelenu in 5th place as well, looking to try and take advantage as well. But it's been a pretty good drive for Ivan. He's stayed out of trouble, and that's been the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. And overall, I think for him it's just very, very huge that he's finally just able to get this podium. He's been looking at it so lustfully for so long. He's been looking at it. He's been seeing Mikhail and, of course, Windy fighting for P2 and P3. He's been seeing Kyokudo get threatened by Windy at Monza, and you know, the entire time he was just thinking, I want to be up there with those guys. I want to be on this podium. And now he's finally here. Not necessarily in the way that he wants it, of course, because, you know, when someone of the top 3 misses around because of something like quarantine and all that stuff, it's not necessarily the way you want to get it, but a podium is still a podium. So, of course, he's going to be very happy with this result once he crosses the line.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And of course, he's 25 points behind the 3rd place man who's not with us tonight in Windy. So, I mean, it would have to be a really rank outside chance for him to grab 3rd place in the championship standings. But, I mean, all he can do is go for it and see what happens.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think Windy would still remain 3rd place in the standings because he had a 2nd place, so therefore the better single race result. However, it's still, just for Ivan, it is a huge thing for him to happen, because of course you're going to be happy if you just finish this entire season, which has been so challenging. We've seen people push on the limits, we've seen people fail pushing on the limits, and of course, just to finish this season in arguably the most difficult race, because rain at Spa, it's quite a number. I think the only more difficult thing to do would be rain at Sebring or rain at the Nordschleife, for example. And for 90 minutes as well with accelerated tire wear. To get your best result in this rain and in this race, I think it's something to be quite proud of.
Yeah, I think so. And as you rightfully said, it's possibly one of the toughest races we could have thought of to round off this season. But we're watching Ivan here making his way towards the start-finish line, third place at the moment, 1 minute 10, or 1 minute 14, I should say now, off the race leader. But we're about 13 and a half minutes away from the checkered flag, and there is Daman, and what a race it could have been for Daman. He's 22 seconds off of Ivan, and to be honest with you, without those incidents, he could have been right on his tail for third place.
Definitely, and that is just one of these big things with would've, could've, should've, but sadly it didn't happen, because of course you have to stay error-free, and well, he took a gamble going very, very long. It almost paid off, but just one little misstep, it's all it takes in these situations. And sadly for the man, that misstep did happen, not just once but twice. So a very good effort from him, a valiant fight back to only be 23 seconds behind after those two crashes. But, it's just not quite turned out how he wanted it to happen.
No, and unfortunately so, that is the case. But there is Chelanu here, making their way on towards the Kemmel straight, 5th place so far, and still a chance to try and grab 4th place in these final 13 minutes. 7.3 seconds is the gap between himself and Daman, and to be honest with you, Daman has made 2 mistakes this race, as we've already discussed. It's worth Chelanu, keeping that pace up, because we don't know what's going to happen. Is Daman going to make another mistake? You never wish to wish ill on your rivals, but if there's another mistake from Daman, Chelanu could take full advantage.
That's definitely true. He's definitely in the striking range, and when we compare how much time he lost at his crash at Piff Puff, which was, I think, around 15 seconds, around that area, he's definitely in striking range now already. So it just needs to be one single misstep. He's probably also on a heavier car still, or just slightly heavier car, but definitely on more worn tires. So the man really has to stay careful now. He has to watch his step. He's really step dancing in a minefield, so to say, with this current Audi. And you see the gap going down. He really is being careful. So Chelanu, either he has to push on the limit right now to get that gap down even more and more and more, or the man just has to make a mistake.
Yes, and at the moment the gap is coming down, but not at a rate that the man has to worry about yet. Still in 4th place, gap is 7.2 seconds. As you can see, it is coming down, and I think Daman will just be keeping one eye on that time and just make sure it's not coming down too much. We've got Kenneth in the pit lane then, with just under 11 minutes to go. Could this be an attempt to try and post his fastest lap of the race? In he comes into the pits. Is there going to be a change of tyres? Yes, there is. What about fuel, I wonder? I think he's going to keep that fuel the way it is, or if not, just a slight splash and dash. To be honest with you, he doesn't really need to take on board any fuel, and he's gone onto a different set of tyres there. He's gone onto the intermediate as well. He's a brave man for trying this one, for sure.
That's a lot of standing water, so overall we can already see, especially with the controller inputs, that's going to be an adventure. So I'm quite interested to see how he will actually fare with that, and that is already quite a nervous rear end. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, kind of definitely a man of bravery, if not for pure pace, but definitely a man of bravery.
Yeah, and just a confirmation from our race director that if the positions don't change for the end of the race, if it were to finish like this, we'll have a situation of equal points between Jamie and Ivan for third place. But as Jamie has had more podiums, he will secure that third place. So it's along the lines you were thinking there, Nicholas, that Jamie will hold on to that third place in the standings. So all Ivan can do right now is just keep pushing on. Doesn't know what's going to happen in these last 9.5 minutes. There's Kyokuro making his way across the line to start his 30th lap of the race. There is Ivan then. Again, all he can do is just keep pushing and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely, because of course in the last couple of minutes anything can happen. It just takes one misstep, as we saw, to lose a lot of time, even with a 34-second gap to Mikhail. But still, nevertheless, they still have to finish before they can actually claim their prizes. So all that Ivan has to do is hang on, and if he can somehow get Mikhail in that, that would be very good on him, and he would be certainly in a nice spot there, because at that point he would be beating Windy Boy.
Yes, and the only problem is, though, that he's got to get second place for that to be the case, and second place is 34 seconds up the road with 8.5 minutes to go. It's going to be a tough one for Ivan, but never say never in motorsport. Anything can happen. So he now makes his way on towards that bus stop chicane, and all he can do, as we keep saying, is just keeping his head down and just keep pushing on. I wonder how Kenneth is doing out there on those intermediate tyres. It's certainly a brave decision to go onto those intermediate tyres. The risk you have of aquaplaning further increases, where the car just cannot disperse enough water to make contact with the track surface. So it's a bit of a difficult one, a bit of a tricky one, but I think that confirms that he's having fun out there. He's just throwing caution to the wind, trying a different tyre, seeing if it works.
I mean, a very good driver once said a good driver has the flies not on the windscreen but on the side window. But that driver was Walter Röhrl, and he was referring to a rally Audi instead of, one for the normal circuit. So that's definitely something to consider in that. But I think Kenneth is just trying out his limits at the moment and sees where stuff goes.
Oh, absolutely, and it is a tough circuit. It's tough conditions, and trying them on the wet tyres alone is mad, let alone in the intermediates. So we'll have to check how he gets on. If he keeps on the track with those intermediates in the standing water conditions that we have out on track, that deserves a medal enough. Can we make up another medal? Is that possible? But anyway, we're watching Ivan here. A copper medal, I like it. Ivan making his way now in towards Brussels now, through that long right-hander, and especially in these treacherous conditions, it feels like that corner goes on forever before you can actually apply the power again.
Yeah, definitely, and just overall this entire section here, for most of the entire circuit, you're just on the brakes, you let it roll for a moment, and then you're back on throttle. And for Brussels and for Jackie X Corner, you just have to sort of stay more patient the entire time, simply because those corners, they just sort of fall away. Brussels is a little bit off camber as well while it goes downhill. And normally for Jackie X Corner, you look at the corner and it should actually help you a bit. But the way that the elevation on the inside is just a bit higher, so it's that very weird angle of off camber and also falling away downhill. So it's really easy to make a mistake there. You have to be really patient there, and especially in the rain, the car likes to snap on you there.
Absolutely. But Ivan makes his way on towards his way to Blanchimont, still 36 seconds behind of Mikhail and 25 seconds clear of Daman. But we're getting into that closing stage of the race. Less than 6 minutes to go. Kyokuro leads the way then, and he's coming up on the back of Windy here, who I believe this is going to be a second lap put onto Windy here, now making their way through Brussels and towards X Corner. And Windy will probably let him go on the short run towards Pouon. Let's see if he dives over to the left-hand side. Yes, he does. So, actually, no, he's going to keep his foot in, though, at the moment. He thought about letting Kyokuro through, but thought, yeah, you're not actually close enough yet, so I'm going to take the racing line for Pouon. So, Kyokuro is going to have to remain behind just a little bit before we head on towards the twisting section there. Oh, there's a little bit of a miscommunication between the two of them there. Kyokuro taking the line anyway. We get away through Puon then. So Windy was taking that racing line. Kyokudo wanted to get past on the racing line, expecting Windy to move off the racing line, but that didn't happen. And there you can see almost catastrophe there for Kyokudo especially, but managed to avoid hitting the rear end of the back marker of Windy, and maybe the heart rate, beats per minute, would have gone on just a couple of notches there for Kyokudo.
Most definitely it did, but yeah, to me it seemed like Windy, he just tried to stay on the right-hand side to give Kyokudo priority over the racing line into Piff Puff. But, you know, as you said, miscommunication. And as I said, you know, you have to finish first. Well, first you have to finish before you finish first. And this was basically the perfect example, because hard stops like that can just always happen. Kenneth, meanwhile, had enough of his bravery, I think, and is changing, hopefully, to wet tires again. There we are.
That's better. Sensible decision, really, isn't it? But I think he's had his fun on the intermediates and now joins onto the circuit on the full wet weather tyres, which are the tyres that have proven to be, throughout this race, the better tyre to be on. But at least we get to see him out there getting those laps in. And, well, he's done a great job to keep it out on the circuit, albeit at that moment at the very start of the race. He's had a pretty clean running so far, so it is great to see him out there. And, of course, he'll only improve as well, which is a great sign of things to come. Racing on a controller, we believe, as well, so it's even better car control than what we give him credit for. So great to see him out there, and great to see him putting in the laps. Well, we have just over 3 minutes to go then, and depending on where Kyokudo is, we'll be able to work out how many laps to go are there. I would roundabout guess that there's going to be 2 laps to go. There is Kyokudo, who's making his way through the campus section and on towards Stavolo. So yeah, we're definitely going to have this lap and next lap. In fact, that's not Stavolo, that's going to be Exeter campus. I'm getting my corners all mixed up. Exeter of Les Combes, there we go, got it in the end, and now making his way in towards Brussels. Took me a while there to figure out where he actually was, and went in there with the confidence, and the confidence is not paid off, not really.
I mean, you know, after a race like this, not just the track gets flooded, but also our heads get flooded with information. So
that's a good excuse. Thanks for covering me. I like that one. Kyokudo now making his way through Puon here for what should be the penultimate lap of this race, and sliding his way through the exit of Puon on towards campus section as we head towards that chicane, and just trying to keep it on the track bit by bit. He's got Kenneth ahead of him as well. Another lap will be put on Kenneth before the end of this race. And of course, when we get to the countdown going to 0, that lap that they're on, the checkered flag will come out at the end of that lap. So Kyokudo spinning up the rear tyres on the exit there as we head our way in towards Paul Frere's section. I think he's having a little bit of fun out there on his last couple of laps, but he's got to keep his head here, because he's got to get that car to the checkered flag before he can start celebrating this win. He gets past Kenneth there, who lovely, and pulls to the right-hand side of the circuit to let Kyokudo through, and a bit more of a communication. That's how you do it in terms of communication between Kyokudo and Kenneth. But now making his way in towards the bus stop chicane, Kyokudo here is going to start the final lap of this race in the lead, just under 43 seconds ahead of Mikhail. And that title, that Endurance Series title, is getting ever closer. He's 7 kilometers away.
Yeah, and what can you say other than he handled the race perfectly once again? He just completely kept it under control. He kept it, you know, he knew when to push, he knew when to hold it back, and he just did it completely perfectly up to the line so far. Of course, he has to get around one last time, but once again, you know, like, it's 43 seconds. He doesn't have much to lose. I think even if he had a spin now, he would still have a comfortable gap. But of course, he shouldn't really want to end on that note. But either way, you know, well done to him. Fantastic pace from the start once again. And of course, well, what can you say other than bravo, Kyokudo?
Yeah, he's now tackling the exit of Les Combes there, sliding his way through as he now makes his way down towards that long right-hander of Brussels here. is sort of one of those reconnaissance laps where you think, I've done this. This is my victory. I'm going to enjoy this final lap. He's also got the fastest lap of the race as well, and that 2 minutes 43.4 set earlier on in this race. He now makes his way on towards Pouon for the final time, looking to make it 4 wins out of 4 in this HyperX Endurance Series for the last round of the championship. Well, he makes his way through there, just trying to kick out that back end. He's doing it on purpose here, trying to put on the style on his final lap of the race here, and the final lap of the series, making his way all the way through in towards this campus section as he just tries to get that car now on his way through Stavolo. He's not got long to go here as he makes his way towards the final couple of corners, sliding his way through. He's enjoying this last moment then on track. He pretty much knows he's going to get there. All he needs to do is cross the line now as he makes his way towards the last couple of corners. This bit of straight that's not a straight. Heading his way now towards Blanchimont, then the final real quick left-hander to try and keep the car behaving itself all the way through. Kissing that curb on the entry then as he makes his way now towards the bus stop chicane for the final time, then braking hard, using those brakes one last time as Kyokudo here makes his way through that bus stop chicane here at Spa-Francorchamps, and expect a couple of wheel spins here as he makes his way through. Actually spins it around here. Not that he's going to care too much about that one. He'll get the car restarted, will he? Yep, wheel spinning all the way. Full celebration mode for Kyokudo. He'll cross the line to win the HyperX Endurance Series here at Spa-Francorchamps. 4 wins out of 4. Completely dominant drive here. Mikhail, although he tried the alternate strategy, he knew he had to try something different to try and make this race work. But unfortunately, this time around, the 3-stop, the more aggressive strategy, didn't quite play into his hands. He now makes his way in towards the bus stop chicane, and he will get the runners-up spot as he makes his way towards that checkered flag. Mikhail then finishing in 2nd place here at Spa-Francorchamps. He's still happy about that one and takes the checkered flag. And Ivan here getting 3rd place, and the man in 4th, Chelanu in 5th, Windy 6th, and Kenneth rounding off the top 7. Well, I have to say, Nicholas, what a race. And of course, for the championship winner in Kyokudo, he's done it. 4 wins out of 4. He'll absolutely love that.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And of course, having won this, he will now win a lot of good prizes from HyperX, of course, which are the Cloud Alpha S Blackout, the Alloy Elite 2, Pulsefire Surge, Fury, and, the Fury SL mousepad. But Mikhail, of course, he won't go out empty either. He's also going to get a Cloud Alpha S Blackout and an Alloy FPS RGB Silver Switch. So very good prizes here from HyperX, and even Windy Boy, of course, even though he couldn't sadly make it here, he still kept his 3rd position, so he's going to get a Cloud Singer Core 7.1 Wide and a Pulsefire Surge. So a lot of stuff to look forward to for those 3 guys, and of course we're going to be having all of the guys here for an interview in just a moment.
Yeah, and it'd be great to get their insight into what was, it looked at a tough Spa-Francorchamps circuit to master just from the commentary box, let alone how the drivers thought about it out there. So I'm really looking forward to having a chat with them, and of course having a chat with our series winner and the top 3, hopefully as well. We'll be getting Jamie on board. Although he wasn't able to race here tonight, hopefully we'll be getting a chance to speak to him, because that result means that he has wrapped up 3rd place in the series, and prizes will be coming his way as well, courtesy of HyperX there. I have to say though, Nicholas, what a season it's been for the championship winner. It's been a fantastic season for Daniel, and I'm sure he'll enjoy this one.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's basically what you want to aim for if you're a fast guy, and you just constantly want to show how fast you are, especially for the upcoming year, for the upcoming championship to represent Malta in, of course, the FIA games. So, he's really making a name for himself. He's really wanting to just imprint his name on the flag of Malta, and he's really doing good at doing that. But at the same time, we've seen over the season, we've seen how Mikhail and Windy, they both grew so much. So I think for that championship to come, overall, I think it's going to be another very interesting thing to see those three guys just continuously competing, and maybe Windy and Mikael actually getting even quicker to challenge him more consistently.
Well, I'll have to find out, see if it's set up next time around to see if they can give us an even better show. Not that that's even possible, of course, but I think for Daniel here, he'll enjoy this victory for a long time. It's not often you get to win all races in a series so convincingly, and that's going to be a huge amount of momentum to bring him forward, especially, as you say, with the FIA Motorsport Games in representing Malta in the near future. And we've got hopefully some of the top three. In fact, they've all joined us. Oh no, someone's just left. I think that was Daniel there, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get to speak to all of them. In fact, hopefully we've got Daniel on the line. Daniel, can you hear us? No, unfortunately not. Oh, that's a shame. So we'll move on then to Mikael. Mikael, can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi, Mikael. Well, I have to say, second place in the standings as well. How are you with that one? Are you happy?
Yeah, it's for the first championship that I ever participated in, and I'm quite happy. Obviously, I think I can close the gap, but for the first time, it's quite good.
Yeah, and you also in that race, we saw you try a more aggressive strategy, 3 stops in that race. What was your thinking behind that one?
I thought I could be lighter on the fuel and put less wear on the tires by doing an extra stop. However, that did not work out as I crashed in my second stint and had to pit back again.
So you had an incident in your second stint. Wow, that was whereabouts was that then?
Yeah, it was after the Camel Straight, and I touched a bit the grass and hit the rear end, and the car was not in good condition, so had to pit back in for repairs.
And obviously, the 4 rounds you've competed in, as you say, it's your first championship that you've taken part in. Finishing runner-up is not a bad way to start off your career here.
Yeah, it's true. For the first time, and even being the first time I've raced endurance as well, I think it's a good starting point. I know I can get to the gap a bit closer, and I was just working hard for the actual championship.
And Nicholas, I'll hand over the mic to you if you have a question.
Well, overall, it seemed like you were able to get closer more and more within this series. So whenever the next couple of events are coming through, whenever you 3 guys are sharing the track together, of course, you guys have been a spectacle to watch all the time. Are you thinking that you can catch up to Daniel a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. I've been making some silly mistakes, and pushing too far to catch him, so that's why I ended up even wearing more the tires and even ruining my strategy, I can say. So I think if I can work more on that, I think I should be able to close the gap even more.
Either way, fantastic job today. You brought it home and you got your second place. As you said, your first series, so definitely something to be proud of, and especially in these difficult conditions. So thank you very much, Mikael.
Thank you very much.
And Mikael, is there any shout-outs you'd like to have after this series?
As I would thank the organizers. It's been a good starting point and even preparation for us for the next championship. And also, I would like to thank Daniel and Jamie. They've been good competitors. They've pushed me to my limit, I can say. So I'm looking forward for the upcoming championship. Let's see what it brings.
Well, thank you for joining us, Mikael. Enjoy your runners-up spot and enjoy the prizes from HyperX coming your way. Well deserved. Congratulations and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. Stay up.
And hopefully we've got Daniel, our series winner. Daniel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Daniel, congratulations. 4 wins out of 4. You made that look easy out there. I think you were showboating at the end there. Was that right?
No, actually, I think I finished without fuel just as I was coming out of the last corner. And I don't know what happened really. It just spun on me.
Well, talk us through that race because it looked a lot like there you were in control of that car all the way through. Was the two-stop always the strategy you were going to go for?
I at first I was thinking about doing the 3-stop, but seeing the gap always growing, I decided I'll just switch it there and then, and seemed like it worked fine at the end as well.
And so does there have to be a change in how you manage the fuel at that point? Because obviously you're making one fewer stop.
Not really, just maybe not much, to be honest. It didn't affect fuel saving that much. I wasn't. It's more on the tires. Coming out of the corners, you need to take it a bit more easier because when those die out, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, your first thoughts. You've won the series, 4 out of 4 wins. How do you feel about that?
Quite happy with it. I think I can still improve on consistency. It's the one thing I'm still not sure about. And on the one lap qualifying, I think I can get a bit more out of myself driving the car.
Well, you are 1.1 quicker than anybody in qualifying. That's a terrifying statement to say you can go even quicker. But
that's what we're always aiming for. Always go quicker, though.
I like it. I like the style. Nicholas, I'll hand over to you for any questions.
Well, overall, I don't really have any questions other than, well, what is your next target other than this? You know, you've been absolutely smashing, and well, what are your targets just generally competing here? Do you want to represent Malta well in the Nations Cup games if you manage to win that championship as well?
I'm hoping I will represent Malta, but I think I still. It's always a matter of just practicing and always getting better and better and better, because there are some foreign people on the game who are actually proper fast on it, and to keep up with them you need to always practice and keep pushing.
Yeah, definitely. So even on the top of the world right now, no rest for the wicked, still looking at practice and looking to improve himself. Any shout-outs you want to make to sponsors, friends, family?
Mainly, as you mentioned, friends and family, always supporting me. I would like to thank World Pro Racing for organizing this event, and the other competitors, because we try to help each other to see where we can improve and get better during races and qualifying.
Something very fantastic to hear, of course. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you.
Yes, and Daniel, enjoy your championship win, 4 wins out of 4. Absolutely dominant. We've got, hopefully, Jamie on the line as well. 3rd place in the standings. That's been confirmed. Jamie, are you with us?
Hello, hello.
Hello, Jamie. Unfortunately, you weren't here tonight, but you have sealed 3rd place in the standings and have some lovely prizes from HyperX on the way. How does that make you feel?
Pretty pleased. I raced 3 races. I had to miss the last one because I'm stuck in quarantine right now. But for the first championship I did online, I think I'm pretty pleased with that. Also, knowing how tough the competition was. So.
Yes, and just to go through to reflect on your championship as well, how do you think you did this season?
A couple of mistakes, I think, all around, like in Monza, even Brazil. I think I need to improve my race pace, definitely, be more consistent. But yeah, we'll aim it for next season.
And just to steal one of Nicholas's questions, because I know he's going to ask you this, but what are your targets from now on? Obviously, no race here in Spa because of the quarantine that you're unfortunately in, but where do you see yourself going from now?
Yeah, in terms of racing, trying to get a bit more in karting right now. We have a new track in Malta. And yeah, need to beat Daniel, that's our top target.
That's a good target, I got to say.
Yeah, it's a hard one to climb.
Well, I'll hand over the microphone to Nicholas, because he's been wanting to ask you about Monza this whole time. We've mentioned it about 4 or 5 times, so I'll hand over to him to see what he says about it.
Hi, Jamie. Good to speak to you as well. I mean, we were messaging just before the race and even at the start of the race, you know. just very, very bad spot to be put in with quarantine. And of course, I think the most the most memorable quote that you sent me was basically, "If only I hadn't messed up at Monza." But like with these mistakes that happened, are you letting yourself get dragged down by it, or is it more of an incentive for you to just continuously keep pushing?
No, pretty much I want to keep pushing and win a race, basically. The penalty system in Gran Turismo let me down a bit sometimes. And even my own mistakes, to be honest. But just target I need to aim.
Well, it's definitely always good to see the motivation not being killed by something like that. And of course, very, very nice, of course, to hear the rivalry just go on, not just behind the rig, but also just on the real kart track. So that's something very, very cool to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Any shoutouts you want to make to friends, family, or sponsors?
Yeah, my friends and family supporting me, World Pro Racing, and even you guys and Jake Sperry. The whole this championship endurance, it's been a long one.
Well, it's been fun to watch you guys go at it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.
And a big congratulations for Jamie there, sealing third place in the series. Well, Nicholas, we've reached the end of the series, and a pretty successful series by all accounts.
Yeah, most definitely. We've had amazing races, we've had a lot of action, and, well, I think most of all, so many different ways of strategy play. So it's always been racking our brains just trying to get behind the plays that the guys that are here in the commentary booth right now actually put on track. So it's always been some food for thought, and I've really enjoyed watching these guys go at it.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've been enjoying it too. It's a big shoes to fill with Jake not being here, unfortunately. But to be alongside you, Nicholas, for the first ever time, we just clicked as soon as everything started. It was great to be alongside you, and hopefully I'll get to spend more time with you in the box very soon.
Yeah, I'd like that very much.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully you have enjoyed the championship as well. Just one last question from myself, Nicholas. If you had to pick one moment from the championship to watch back over, what would it be?
That's a difficult one. I think honestly the overall the biggest moment for me was the Monza start, because Jamie had out-qualified Daniel and they were fighting for the lead, and if just that mistake with the reset hadn't happened, I think we would have had a battle for the lead for the entire way, because despite that reset and everything going down, they still just continued fighting, and you could still see Jamie tried his best to get that gap back down, and he was constantly pushing. So it was just really, really fun to see, and despite all that happening, I really hope that we get to see more of that.
Yeah, we just saw that mistake there that happened at Monza. I'm sure Jamie didn't want to see that one again, but it's been shown again. So unfortunately, that happened in Monza. It cost him the chance of battling for the race victory. But I know he's happy with third place in the championship. There's plenty of prizes coming his way from HyperX, so that should sweeten the blow just a little bit. But thank you all for watching the stream tonight, and thank you all for watching the Endurance series hosted by HyperX. Just a thank you to all of the sponsors that you can see on the screen, Gaming Malta, Visit Malta.com, and Melita as well. That is going to do it from us tonight, from myself and from Nicholas. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care of yourself, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.
This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport. This stream is powered by Melita, using Melita Gigapower Internet. World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
For only €5 a month, experience every high-definition moment on your TV, tablet, phone or PC. Great teams, great moments, and so much more. TSN from Melita is your ticket to stay in the game. Visit melita.com/sports.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
Wish your Wi-Fi network would just work in any room? Our new Stellar Wi-Fi is AI assisted to give you the smoothest, fastest possible Wi-Fi throughout your home. Stellar Wi-Fi, assisted by AI, exclusive to Melita. Find out more in-store or online.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.